Hi, good afternoon. You all can hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Right. Okay, fine. So I think we are moving on to today on the trade side of it. Uh, First session, I think some of you would have missed. I think you can probably see the recording. I think we went through about correspondent banking, how the correspondent banking is so important for the bank when you do foreign exchange transaction. The correspondent banking is the fundamental, and then we studied what is Vostro Nostro accounts, and then how to establish relationship with bank and the importance of Swift we learned, and then the compliance is become more and more uh, key or significant to rationalizing the relationship. So the correspond the rather the compliance issue become more and more significant becoming because there are a lot of unauthorized channelizing their funds through the official banking channel. So the compliance is going to be the key factor when it comes to rationalizing foreign relationships. So that is what we discussed on the first session. So we are moving on to today, understanding international trade. You may call it as a foreign trade or international trade, which is very interesting. Uh, and as you go through the slides, you can see how interesting the trade and as well as the complexity, right? So let us see. End of the session, we will be uh, having our learning objective. Yes. What is international trade and how it operates? So we will see the introduction, and we'll also look at what is Sri Lanka's trade policy comparison to the global trade policy. A role of authorized dealer as a commercial bank. As a commercial bank, we are fully fledged authorized dealer uh, in foreign exchange, carrying out foreign exchange transaction. Then the payment method used in international trade, which is very, very important. These are unique globally. Wherever you go, the payment method would be the same because we are talking about global trade, international trade. So every country use the same mechanism, and there are sets of rules. These are not law; these are rules set by International Chamber of Commerce to facilitate global trade transaction, to ease, might make it everybody's life easier, uh, and they will create uniform rules. That's what you can see. The U stand for all uniform. Uniform means it's a common. Every country can practice these rules. So let us see what is UCP, URR, URC end of the session. And there's something very interesting when it comes to international trade, the Incoterms 2020 that have been revised. So we'll just glance through the Incoterm as well. Then the important part of it, the documents, the key factor when it comes to international trade, the documents. So the banks are dealing in documents, right? So we don't deal in goods, we are dealing in documents. So what type of goods? What is the key document? What are the key documents that when it comes to title to claim the title of the goods? What is the document used? So we are going to learn all type of documents, right? So that is our objective of the session today. So let's move on to international trade. So what is international trade? So international trade means movement of capital, goods, and services between different jurisdictions, different countries. Moving capital, that means when somebody wants to invest in our country, that's the investment, right? That's in nature of capital. And you have import of goods and services. So these factors moving between nations are considered as foreign trade. So foreign trade, if you simply say, if a country want to buy from global trade, the country has to import, or if a particular nation want to sell it to the global market, you call it export from the point of the country. So that is where the import export both are coming in. And sometimes you might learn the word called entrepot trade, or you may pronounce as uh, entrepot trade or entrepot trade. That is, the country imports the goods without using for the domestic purposes, doing some changes or without doing changes can re-export to the other country will be called entrepot trade. The T you can silence. You don't when you spell the word, it's a entrepot trade. The T is silence, right? So it's called entrepot trade, right? Then when it comes to international trade, competitive advantage. What is competitive advantage, right? So that is the key. So when you look at countries like China, what is China is highly spoken when it comes to international trade. Why China is leading the role? I mean, USA is the number one. Yes, still China is trying to aspire to achieve the USA, right? So the China is exporting to every country. What is the competitive advantage China has? Probably the cost factor. They can produce things at a very cheaper rate. That is their competitive advantage to dominate the global market because they are cost leadership. You may use the word cost leadership or cost curtailment. That means they are producing cost at a very cheaper rate. And not only that, the product differentiation. Differentiation means they look at the market and they produce the market wants. Say, if we want something from China, they can produce according to our requirement. And probably they will produce it if we are looking for something a moderate cost or a lower cost, they produce it. And if a developed economy wants to buy something from China, even they can cater to that market by producing a high quality goods. So even the iPhone, what you all are using, the MacBook, laptop you all are using of Apple are produced a plant in China that is catering to the entire population. So even that product is manufactured in that country. So that speaks volume about how is China. So that is where you have a competitive advantage. When a country has a competitive advantage, it means that they produce goods at a very cheaper rate. Then uh, they are they are when it comes to competition, what is competitive advantage? You have a edging over with the other competitors. You outperform all the other nations. So you are the one of the best country to export. You have a market rate. So when you are cost curtailment, when you produce something on a on a lesser cost for a production, then eventually you will be capturing the global market. That is what eventually happens. So because your commodity, what you manufacture, are very attractive in prices and product differentiation. Right? You focus on a particular jurisdiction and you export to them. Right? So that capacity China has. Even the volume, any number of volume you want, they are catered to that. So that is where China is when you take Asia. I think China is overtook Japan. Japan also one of the biggest economy, but China overtook Japan because they are into diversified portfolio of commodities and services to other nations. So that is where China is highly focused. So example is you can competitive advantage China has it over the other competitors. That is you have a uh, additional benefit when you compare to the competitors. That is called competitive advantage, right? Uh, Obviously, yes. So, why a country has to get into international trade? Because a country doesn't have all the resources to manufacture the goods that particular people living in the country consume. So you can't produce all the goods a country consume, especially in a tight competitive current environment. If you think of, you need to depending on the global economy, whether to absorb some services from other country or whether you have any excess commodity, you can sell it to the global market. So if you look at Sri Lanka, for example, we produce tea, rubber, coconut. This is our traditional export crop. So we are mostly depending on this for a number of years. That is where uh, we are we are facing a tough time. So you know the current situation. We having a foreign exchange shortage. So you know now you realize how important the foreign exchange. Okay, export is how important. There are limited way the foreign exchange flow coming into our country. So the major sources that foreign exchange coming into our country, you're probably aware, the export of goods and services, which we are exporting uh, to certain countries, and where tea, rubber, coconut our main export, and plus garments and other rubber related and other commodities we are exporting. And our export income also been impacted due to the pandemic situation. And the tourism is one of the other source of foreign exchange earner that again totally affected. Then the expatriate workers who are going in. So that is also been impacted because some of the Middle Eastern countries had closed their market for foreign workers. Then as a result, we also could see the worker remittances inflow also as a contraction, right? So there has been an impact. So that is where we have a problem. So for inflow has been limited, or in some cases there's no inflow at all. When you take tourism, about $4 to $5 billion every year we earn. Last couple of years before the crisis, about $4 to $5 billion. The entire $4 to $5 billion is not there. I mean, we are not a country which have enough foreign reserve to sustain. That is where we are struggling for. So when it comes to international trade, remember this is the market where it allows you to capture. If you are competitive enough, you can explore and you can export to the other countries at a cheaper level. That is where the China is dominating. So just because of you have an international trade, you are in a position to go and buy. Now look at things for us. We don't have all these medical medicines, everything we need to import, right? We don't manufacture any medicines per se. Maybe one or two, three items we maybe with a combination of foreign technology. So we are far behind when it comes to manufacturing. We need to focus more on manufacturing, more on production. That is where we can curtail our import and serve some foreign reserve. And we are more depending on the import side of it. So there we need to gradually start manufacturing. Some production may not be possible within another 2 to 3 years. It might take long 10 to 15 years, but still we need to uh, make sure our back end is sound enough for us to go forward with a tight competitive global trade. That is where every country aspiring. So when a country has a capacity, there are enough potential they can capture the global market. So that is where the trade is become a very handy. If you are a company, or if you are a government corporation, or if you are an individual capacity where you are manufacturing goods or services at a very competitive price, and you can capture the market. That is what some of the leading company doing it, right? So, what is the foreign trade policy? Every country will have every government will have their trade policies, right? Every country will have their trade policies. There is a government action plan. What are the import quota? How much we need can import? There will be, we can't import everything, so we have import quota. And you support the exports. Yeah, every country will support, because end of the day they want foreign exchange flow coming into the country. So every country will support export of goods and services. They will definitely, that is their priority, because that is what the foreign exchange coming into the country. The import quota, the foreign exchange is going out of the country because you are buying something from. It can be merchandise, goods, or services. Right? Certain services is essential. Then there is no option of for you to stop it. You need to continuously buy. For example, if you look at our country, the medicines is something that you need to. Crude oil is something that we need to import. That is where we are, because that is a larger ticket size, right? And and due to the some uh, uh, how do I put it across? So due to some incorrect decision taken, now we are going through this commodity of food commodity. Also, is become a issue now for us, because we need to import a lot of commodity to look after the local market, especially the food stuff, right? So that is where uh, the foreign trade policy has to be very, very solid. If you take a developed country, their foreign trade policies are very strong, because uh, they know how best they could make use of their resources and to earn foreign exchange into the country. That is the trade policy of country. Every country will have a trade policy. So that will talks about how much tariff they will, whenever the goods are coming into the country, how much duty to be paid. That is called tariff. How much you should impose a duty, because you need to make sure end of the day the domestic productions are encouraged, are promoted. You can't be importing everything, because end of the day import has to be limited. So you will allow import quota. So whenever, so you hear that sometime when we have this GSP plus, when we are exporting garments, we are exporting fish and other essentials to European country, where we have a quota. So the import country is European. So they will have a quota given to certain developing country for them to promote their trade. So that is one of the plus points we have, where we have a GSP plus arrangement with European Union, where we can export certain goods uh, with without any tariffs. Those are tariff concession given by certain regional organization, multinational organization supporting the poor countries. So that is one of the factor that have been additional benefit given to us. So we need to make sure the foreign trade policies are allowing us to, being a developing country, uh, they are also being given certain opportunity to deal with developed countries, right? So in that context, uh, foreign trade policy of each country have their own policy. That what are the foreign trade policy talking about here? The government policy. What is their trade? Where do they? What are the commodities they can manufacture locally? What are the commodities that is required to be imported? Why it is important than the make use of the local resources to produce. Sometimes local resources may be expensive to produce, right? Then is importing is better option. Then you go for imports. That is your trade policy. So you will have a set of commodities. These could be imported. These commodity could be exported. Yes. And what are the tariff if you're importing? And there could be concession given to the exporters, promote the exporters. That is what you call subsidies. You give a lot of subsidies to the exporter. Sometimes when exporter import machine and is producing garment, take example in Sri Lanka, when you're importing machineries, but the machinery should be utilized for manufacturing garment, then you give subsidy when you import the machinery, waive off the duty. That is called export subsidy, right? Right. So when you're importing machinery, you will not be charged any duty. So normally when you import machinery, there will be duty. But when you are using that commodity for re-export purposes, you will be given a concession. So those are some of the concession given for export. So the country will have their own policy to ensure end of the day their net exports are plus. That is what end of the day. So if you export 100, if you import 50, you have a surplus of 50. So the surplus amount grow, need to be grow. Every country will have their policy to end of the day, their foreign reserves are growing. That is the policy of economy policy of any nation, right? So Sri Lanka also have we also have our trade policy. I think if you look at the Sri Lanka trade policy, up prior to 1977, we have almost like a closed economy. The imports have been only limited to essential. All other stuff you have to have here. So the liberalization started in 1977. Thereafter, gradual paces. You can see central bank has given certain direction. Okay, now this has been liberalized. People can start importing. People can exporting. So those trade policy has been liberalized since 1977. So so we have, I think, if you really look at it, we are not second to anybody. I think in Asia, if you look at our position, our location, we are much better position than Singapore. But unfortunately, we are far lacking behind Singapore. Even we are now far behind Bangladesh, right? When it comes to economy, right? Their economies are much stronger than us, right? So you can see we had opportunity, right? Unfortunately, things didn't work out the way we wanted. That is where the issue, right? So, but all these resources, all the locational, everything is there. We have a port, one of the best port in the world, right? Even we can bring the strongest, biggest ship into our country, whereas the other country do not have a port to bring those ships. That is why you would have heard that these terminal issues are coming because we have a best uh, natural ports, seaport. So you better than the Singapore, right? So we have naturally everything, but unfortunately these things are not. We couldn't manage these resources uh, in order to derive competitive advantage. That is where we had been lacking. So open trade things should work uh, with these policies. Policymaker take the right policies, then from here onwards we can rectify all the now no we I think everybody aware of the mistakes that have been we have been making since independence. So where we are today. So we need to make sure that as a country, as a whole of country, we need to make sure that we take the right policies and moving forward positively. right? So, so if you look at Sri Lankan trade policy, yeah, it's a liberalized trade policy since 1977. We had all the potential opportunity, right? Now, you would have seen the direction, central bank direction, foreign exchange directions, exchange control have been removed. You know that exchange control, the word itself saying control, that doesn't give a uh, good inviting invitation to the foreign investors. So when you have a controls, the foreign investors will always rethink this country has exchange controls. If I invest, can I take it back? So that that thinking should be there going in the minds of the potential investor. So we have removed that exchange control. Now it's the foreign exchange act. So when you look at foreign exchange act, these are some liberalization. Foreign exchange act. Now there's no control there. Right? It is simply foreign exchange act. Right. That gives a better position. So that have been removed. You I think you would have learned this. I think we have more session to go. So we will when I go through the foreign exchange act. So we will learn more. Uh, so you can see the direction. I mean, we have taken a policy decision as a trade policy to bring foreign investors into the country. Even they can invest 100% into certain field of uh, information, mass transportation, telecommunication. So you can say the Airtel has been given opportunities to come in with IOC. Indian Oil Company have been given permission. I think there are more people to come in there now. So those are possibility. Probably we will have a arrangement with those countries to develop our internal, utilizing the internal resources, make use of their buying their technology and improving those assets here. So that is where the trade policy. So the trade policy has to be prudent, and the trade policy should be utilizing the wealth we have in the right direction. So therefore, you will have more foreign inflow coming in. That is how the trade policy of the country. Apart from the trade policy, there are there are I think Sri Lanka has joined with these organization. I think Sri Lanka joined in Indo-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. I think in 2000, I think it was signed in 1998. I think came into force in March 2000. Indo-Sri Lanka. We have a special bilateral trade agreement. Remember, there are countries enter into bilateral trade agreement. That means we are India is one of our neighbor countries. They are one of the bigger economy, right? India is one of the biggest economy, right? Having a population of 1.3 billion people, right? 1.3 means 1,300 million people, right? So you can just compare our 21 million to 1,350 million or whatever, 1,300 odd. So we are only 21. So you can just imagine what big economy. And if you look at China, it's 1.4 billion economy, 1.4 billion people. About say they there will be about 15 trillion economy, 15 trillion US dollar economy. The biggest economy is China. So they have the population of 1 point. So you can just see, look at these numbers, right? So we are very small. So we need to be partner with those developing countries to in order to get the benefit. That is where we join with the bigger countries like China. We join, and we have separate agreement with Pakistan. I think which came into effect in 2005. We joined Pakistan into why? What is this? What is this agreement going to give us? Because what happens is when we are joining with a powerful nation, then what happens? They will permit us our exporters to reach their market, and also simultaneously they will allow their exporters to capture it to Sri Lanka market. So this is where you enter into agreement with a country. That country will give you permission to reach their market. So if you look at that Indo Sri Lanka agreement, that has a lot of potential. But I don't think we have made use of this potential, because India is a huge market, 1.3 billion people, right? So we have a huge market, but there one or two people went and performed very well. If you take Damro is really doing well in India. That is one of the Sri Lankan company to perform better, right? Then that they are doing it. So likewise, there are so many people should come in here. Then only you can get the maximum benefit from this bilateral agreement, because the market is huge. Indian market is open. We need to have people uh, with enough resources to cover that market. We are talking about 1.3 billion people, 1,300 million people, right? We are a smaller country. So there's a huge market for us. So we need to have resources to capture the market. So that is where we go and enter with an agreement. And in the same time, we also can make use of the Indian exports into our country. Like now, if you really look at it, we are buying some vehicle from India. Right? A lot of this bicycle and the car, that motor vehicles are coming. Now the motor vehicle is totally for import is banned due to the foreign exchange issue. But other than that, we used to import a lot of vehicle from India. So Indian cars are there. You probably aware, right? So these are under Indo trade agreement. There is a bilateral. Likewise, we have entered into agreement with Pakistan also. There are Pakistan as they also buy from tea and other stuff from us, rubber, natural rubber they buy from us. And also we also buying certain commodities like food stuff from Pakistan and carpet and all we used to buy from Pakistan, right? And some cloth item where we are buying. And there is a regional some countries, South Asian free trade agreement. If you look at South Asian, those 8 countries are given there. So if you can say Sri Lanka is there, Pakistan is there, India is there, Nepal, Maldives, Afghanistan. I think Afghanistan last to join in the SEPTA. So they joined Afghanistan. I think they joined in 2007 into the SEPTA. All other 7 countries, with the Afghanistan joining, it's become 8 countries in the SEPTA. So these countries, when the SEPTA every year they join together, they each other talk about each other. So the country that are like say take for example India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, now bigger economy than us. Maybe Bhutan, Nepal, Maldives are maybe smaller than us. Even Afghanistan maybe same or maybe equal or whatever the current situation. So we also one of the bigger nation. I think you probably were after independence, we were surplus budget, right? In 50s, we were surplus budget. But thereafter, we couldn't sustain that surplus. Then we went into minus right through. Now we are having shortage of foreign resources. So these kind of a regional joining will assist us to boost our economy, where we can get the support of the bigger country, and maybe we can support the smaller countries like Bhutan, Nepal, smaller than us. Then we can support them. So that is where when you join these regional uh, pact or trade agreement, you have then the APTA, Asia Pacific Trade Agreement. Also, Sri Lanka joined. There you can see China is there, and South Korea is there, Korean Republic is there, then India is there, Bangladesh is there. This is called Asia Pacific Trade Agreement. Uh, this is also, I think Sri Lanka joined in 2006. They joined. I think SAFTA we joined in 1980. SAFTA is the old one. South Asia Free Trade Agreement we joined in 1985. Still we there are some assistance we get this. So what happened when you are joined with these regional uh, countries, you will have a special tariff benefit. That means when you're importing from these countries, you will not charge a duty because you will promise those countries, okay, whatever the goods that you coming from your country, we will not charge you. Same way, you allow our Sri Lankan exporters to come into your market. So there will be bilateral agreement between these countries, and they will allow their local producers, local exporters to give opportunity to their country, expand the market. So if you look at so about 2 to 3 billion population, probably the SEPTA market, right? India, Sri Lanka is there. Probably the other one much bigger. The APTA must be the bigger market because China, India there, that itself about 4.8 billion people, right? About both country all put together that's about 4 billion. That's one of the Asia Pacific Trade Agreement. It's a country which have the largest population. Both countries are there, so you have a huge market potential when you are joining in this kind of a organization, or you enter agreement with these countries in order to promote your internal that international trade. So you have the benefit of buying their technology. You have the benefit to train your staff. These are the agreement. Under this agreement, you must be sending a team of people to these countries to study that, and those people will come and study your procedure. This is why you give the bilateral benefit. So you import, you export, and there will be less duty charge. These are tariff preferential. So you can import under the credit line. Sometimes you can see now India has assisted us 500 million. under the bilateral agreement. But it's a isolated support given by India recently when we had a crude oil, which we have a power crisis. So India immediately assisted being a neighboring country. So these are the relationship by which when you enter into a bilateral agreement, you will have a close relationship with these countries. So whenever there is a crisis, you are in a position to immediately go to them. They will definitely support being a powerful or better nation, right? GSP Plus. This is something where Sri Lanka is getting a benefit. Uh, the generalized system prefer we are getting the benefit of by from the European Union. These are offered to us. I think the current agreement running up to 2023, but uh, there is assumption whether we will be given this up to 2023 because there have been uh, certain obligation we are supposed to meet. We couldn't meet, so there have been a team visited from European Union. There's a team recently visited and they study because these countries are giving this. What is this GSP plus? A preference. That means you can export certain commodities. They will give a quota. Quota means what is the limitation? When you export, they will give you quota where there will be not any duty charge. So your export commodity will be cheaper induced. I think we made use of this GSP plus. About 2 to 3 billion profit we earn from the market. We earn from exports about 2 to 3 billion from this GSP plus. Right. This is also one of the benefit where we have been given some preferential tariff to go and export our commodities, especially the fish. I think we targeted fish to European Union. We export a lot of fish commodity. Fish means seafood to European Union, and under GSP, and a lot of benefits were given. Even textile also up to a certain extent we exported under GSP plus. And actually, these developed country in European country assisting the developing country is given some sort of a support to improve their trade base. So they will, whatever barriers they have, they will remove those barriers. Obviously, these concessions are given subject to certain conditions. There can't be any human right violation here. So everybody has to their democracy is maintained. There is no unethical things taking place in the private or government organization. And if your economy meeting all these requirements, then you will be given this preferential. You can export to our country. We will buy it from you, and you have a potential to export and earn more profit by exporting to these countries. So this is something additional benefit given. That is what we call GSP plus. GSP plus means it's an additional export preferential given by European Union to certain countries. Sri Lanka also got this facility, ESP Plus, and we have been enjoying this facility currently. And they want to suspend, but there is negotiation going on probably till 2023. The concession is currently is in force. It was stopped some time ago, about 3 4 years ago. It was 2 years ago. It was stopped and reinstated. I'm sorry, it was reinstated in 2015-16 period. We regained this, right? We lost this prior to 2015. That is, we couldn't meet certain obligation in a democracy level, so we lost it, and we regained it in 2016-17 period until 2023. But there again, there had been some issues. We couldn't cope up with their promises that we assured to meet. Of course, now things are taking right direction. Hopefully, we will have the GSP plus continue, right? So we have international tariff structure. There are four tariff structure. You call it four-band tariff structure in Sri Lanka. That means when you are importing, this is what we call tariff. What is tariff? When you are importing, you charge duty. Why you are charging duty? You want to earn. Government has to earn something by importing because they charge duty. Because all these duties and all charge to look after the public expenses. You need to have income. So this is how you make income. A government make income by charging certain duty when you are importing certain commodity. Of course, they will have a restriction also, right? So here, our country, being a developing country, you need to have a raw material import. If you charge raw material, then it will become in. So you can say certain machineries, raw material, actually zero. There's no duty at all. The tariff is zero. And semi-processed goods, right, like crude oil and all, there is a duty, 5%. Intermediate product like fertilizer, lot of intermediate product we used to buy from these various countries, right? So that is about 15%. Chemical, fertilizer, machinery, those are intermediate goods. Uh, when I say machinery, there are other small kind of machineries are coming at the intermediate level. Then we have finished product like all these electrical, all consumable goods are finished product. That's about 30%, including vehicle transport finish 30% duties have been levied. So this is how the duty. This is the structure for band duty. So it could be vary, but these are the structure, main structure, raw material, 0%, including certain machineries, then semi-processed 5%, intermediate 15%, finished product 30%. So you can say government is earning certain revenue by imposing these tariff structure when it comes to imports, right? Then comes authorized dealer. So, okay. So, now we are talking about international trade, right? So, there would be somebody you can go to do import or export, where the import exporter will go to do this foreign transfer. Obviously, we know it is the bank. It is the commercial banks who have been tagged as authorized dealer, right? So there have been a restricted dealer. So you probably aware restricted dealers do not have the fully fledged buying selling foreign exchange because they have a only limited operation, only exchange foreign exchange. These are money exchanges. Those are restricted dealer. But commercial bank being a fully fledged authorized dealer. So the commercial banks have been permitted to buy, sell, borrow, lend, and also to maintain certain foreign currency accounts. All that is permitted as authorized dealer. So the commercial banks are fully fledged authorized dealer. That is what you call AD, authorized dealer. So commercial banks are fully fledged authorized dealer to buy and sell, borrow, lend, and maintain foreign currency. So they are the sole authority. So anybody who want to do import or export, you have to go to the banks. There's no other place because they are the authorized dealer. So when you are buying or selling foreign exchange, you have to go because buying and selling is done by them. Whether if you are exporter, your dollars coming, you have to go to the bank to buy your dollars. So you are selling the dollar, bank is buying, right? So when you're buying selling also, let me explain when things are going. I mean, when you study along, so you should know what do you mean by buying selling. People make mistake. The bank is buying, the bank is selling. Don't think about the customer, think about the bank's point of view, right? So you always think about bank is permitted to buy. That means bank is buying from the exporter who brings the foreign or person, foreigners, tourists coming into the country with their dollars. We buy and we pay them rupee. So exporter brings a dollar, you take the dollar and pay rupees. That is your buying. Bank is buying. So the bank applies the buying rate. There are other situations. Sri Lankan importer, he imports. So he wants a dollar. So the bank is selling dollars. So the bank applies the selling rate. Or you are a tourist. You are going out of Sri Lanka for a tour. So you need dollars. So you rupee, bank selling dollars to you. So you know the selling. So bank is selling dollars, bank is buying dollars, and also bank is borrowing and lending dollars. These all that is possible with authorized data. But of course, the red word, due diligence. What do you mean by due diligence? Yes, that is where you have to exercise bona fide. Due diligence is the thorough examination. Bona fide is the authenticity or genuinity of the transaction. So, when we are tagged as authorized dealer by the regulator, when the monetary board given license to commercial banks as authorized dealer, there are a lot of expectation from the regulator. The bank has to follow. They will give a guideline direction. Okay, you can issue this foreign exchange provided you get this document here. You need to verify by going through the documents. That is where, when it comes to trade or a normal foreign exchange transaction, the documents are very important because on the face of it, the document should give the data because we don't personally go and check whether this transaction taking place, right? We only going through the documents only we can execute payments, right? Whether to receipt or send the money by going through the documents. So the documents is important. So what is due diligence all about is central bank given certain permitted transaction, and when we are doing the transaction, we have to be mindful the due diligence is always continuously followed. And at the end of the day, the transaction has to be go to the right person. That is called bona fide transaction. That is the permitted authorized transaction. So you need to ensure by taking the relevant documents whether this particular, uh, if I give you an example, somebody coming to you to remit money for their education purpose. Parents coming to you and they want their son to go and study. Now, so you need to know what are the documents to be taken to verify these purposes, uh, and what kind of a document that should be given. The central bank guideline says, okay, education is a permitted transaction, permitted, it's a current transaction. You can remit money. Then, if you are remitting money, what are the documents you should know? You should be taking to ensure this is for the education purpose. This money is going to the university for education purpose. You need to ensure it's the money. So you need to know, okay, you are only remitting this money. So it ultimately it has to go to the university's account. You need to get the documentary of it, right? So whether the student, whether visa is there, student visa is there, where there's offer letter given, all that the documents. So you need to check all these document evidence before you say yes to the transaction, right? And of course the exchange rate. Exchange rate, it's in terms of our currency, in terms of another currency, is called exchange rate. So if you want to buy $1 in terms of rupee, we'll say 205 rupees or 200 rupees to buy $1. That is the bank rate, right? For $1, you need to pay 200 rupees. So the 200 rupees is our currency. In order to buy $1, we need to pay 200. So in terms of our currency, for a dollar, what rate? That is called exchange rate. To buy $1, we need to pay our currency is 200 rupees. That is the exchange rate used in terms of our currency to buy a foreign currency. That is called exchange rate. So the exchange rate keeps on changing every day depending on the market forces, right? Okay, so before we move on to the payment terms, payment method, there is a regulation. This is one of the regulation where this talks about uh, who are the people can import. So remember, import. If you think only company can import, individual cannot import. No, even individual can import. So this direction I specifically selected for you to understand. An individual, you can see, an individual can import. An individual trading in his own name under the business name or citizen of Sri Lanka can import. So as an individual person also you can import. Okay, you have been permitted. Even you can do the exports. Both you can do. A firm partnership for the entity which will register. Of course, you will have a registered office in Sri Lanka as a business firm. You can import, you can export. There's no problem, right? That you can do. Here talks about import, but simultaneously exports also permitted. Public company, private company registered under the Company Act. Yes, they have been permitted. And even not only that, non-national who hold a valid visa resident in Sri Lanka. They, a doctor coming in, Indian doctor working for Lanka hospital, won't import a car. He can do so. He can import because he's a resident visa. He's a resident here, so that is possible, right? So you should know when we are talking about import export, who are the people that import is done by everybody, even including individual. As an individual person, I can even exports. So that is permitted for both trade transactions. So this is the fundamental of regulation. You should know as an individual also you can do that, right? So now we are moving on to the payment terms which you are going to learn, right? Uh, so this is where the interesting part. Obviously, we will learn first two only today because advanced payment open account, we will have a separate session to cover. We will only focusing where the documents are channeled through the banking channel. So these first two, letter of credit, documentary collection, where the banks are getting involved, even to exchange documents. But advanced payment open accounts is a separate, altogether extreme that we will not learn today. But we will. These are the four methods. So you should know when you are into international trade, the payment methods are four types. Always remember payment types are there are four type of payment. One is opening a letter of credit. Other one you call it documentary collection. Documentary collection has two classes of different mode of payment. One is documents against payment, DP. Other one is documents against acceptance. Both are considered as documentary collection. Then there is something called advance payment. Then you will have a open account. So these are the four methods that have been globally used when it comes to import or export. You may call it international trade. So these are four methods. So we are going to look at it. First, letter of credit and documentary collection. Who are the parties? How these things are handled at a macro level, right? Okay. So these are international. So the important thing uh, in Sri Lankan context, earlier when you are importing, you have to use only one specific payment method. If you are importing, you have to import only letter of credit, or it has to be DP, or it has to be DA, or it has to be either advance payment or open account. You can't combine. You can't combine. Now that is permitted. Permitted means that was given for more than, now I think more than 15 years ago, that ruling was given. Combination is possible, including a combination of such payment is possible. I think this rule came in about 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago. So combination is possible now. In 2012, this came in, including combination of such payment terms are permitted. So now, if you are importing, part of its letter of credit, part of it can be advance payment, or part of it documentary collection, part of it open account. So you can mix up and bring in it. That is possible, right? Okay. So now let us look at what is letter of credit. So before we start the letter of credit, remember when you are doing international trade, right? You should understand why the international trade is become more complex. Why some people say it's very difficult when you go to a local market, whatever commodity you want to buy, you buy, which is a domestic trade, one currency, no problem. But when it comes to international trade, you should understand why it become more complex, because you are going to deal with a person in other country, right? It is, we are going, that's what you call cross-border transaction. What do you mean by crossing border? Crossing border is we are crossing our border and dealing with the other person. So the crossing border or international trade is why considered as a complexity, because we are going out of our country. So when you are going out of the country, the other person, first of all, we should have a communication skill to talk to that particular person. Whether we want to buy or whether we want to sell, we need to talk to that particular person. And maybe different languages each speak, right? That's again the other problem. And different currencies, you need to come to compromise what currency we are going to deal. Their country regulation, our country regulation, completely different, right? And sets of law different, culture different. So you can see so many things, factors are different in each country, but still the trade is possible because there are so many methods which will facilitate the trade. So, okay, now we are looking at everybody. When you are trying to deal with an unknown person, always you start with letter of credit. Everybody advise, okay, when you try to deal with a person, unknown trade partner, always start with letter of credit. So why letter of credit is preferred by everybody? Because here the banks comes in and try to assist you as a facilitator role. Banks comes in and give an assurance on behalf of the importer to the seller. Look here, if you fulfill these requirements, we will pay you. Instead of importer, banks comes and say we will pay you to the supplier, to the exporter. That is where the comfort zone for the export. So if you are a seller, just think, if you are a seller, you are selling commodity. Now you have opportunity to sell it to some Indian person. You are going to expand your market, right? That is where your business is going to grow. If you are only focusing domestic market, you have a limited income revenue. If you want to expand your market, definitely you have to go to the foreign trade, where you have a potential lot of customers there to buy, waiting for you, waiting for your commodity. Then you must also understand, okay, there is a risk. I am going to deal with a totally unknown person. How do I secure my payment method? whether that guy will pay me. So you have a some sort of a doubt before you export, before you enter into official deal with the person. So always you ask with an unknown person when you are dealing with, you always get into trade with letter of credit. That is the best advice. When you are dealing with the unknown person, always start with LC. Why? Then you will tell that importer, the buyer in India, okay, you better open a LC, I will supply to you. So the LC, he has to go to his bank and open the LC. That is where you have the comforts now. Instead of that importer, now you are trusting the bank that opened the LC on behalf of that particular buyer, that particular importer. Okay. Now the bank is taking assurance. So the bank is going to give you assurance in the form of LC. If you as exporter fulfill the terms and condition that is given in the LC, the bank will pay you. So the bank is giving assurance to you. So that is where the letter of credit is become more prominent or more facilitator in international trade, especially when you are entering with a totally unknown fresher. First time when you are dealing with, always start with letter of credit. So this particular payment method is uh, uh, also considered as uh, one of the safest method to deal in trade, LC. So this LC is also as other word called documentary credit, DC, documentary credit. So documentary credit, letter of credit are similar words are used. Generally, we in Sri Lanka we say letter of credit. So in some other country they may say DC, documentary credit. So that also similar word for letter of credit. So as I told you, when you are when you are dealing with this foreign payment methods, different payment methods, there are certain regulation. Uh, Rather, is a proper word should be rules. There are rules, uniform rules set by an international body called International Chamber of Commerce (ICC). They publish uniform rules. So for when you're dealing a letter of credit, there is a set of rules published by them called Uniform Customs and Practice. The abbreviation is UCP. The current version is 600. So the UCP, Uniform Customs and Practice rules are changing because there are so many things changing. The way people are shipping changing, the way documents used are changing, the technology used in trade. So things are changing. So you can't have a set of old rules to apply. No, those rules also getting updated. So you can see 1933, this rule was first introduced. There are so many years these rules have been upgraded. The previous version was UCP 500. The current version is UCP 600. So UCP 600 came into force in 2007. So we have been using UCP now almost 7 now about we are using almost uh, 13 to 14 years, right? 14 years completed. So 14 years UCP is there. Probably maybe other 2 years they might go for a revision. Is there any necessity arises, only the rule will be changed. Other than that, the rules will remain there. So UCP 500 was there more than 10 years. I think it was brought in, if I'm not mistaken, 1990s they brought it 500. Then the UCP 600 came in 2007. So these are rules set by ICC, the best practices the international community can looked upon. So, so remember, when you are dealing with letter of credit, all the operations are governed by the rules, international rules called UCP 600. So these are uniform rules. What is simple uniform rules assist you because every country have their own rules and regulations. But when the country trying to deal with the other country person, then they should have a common set of rules everybody should follow. Then it's become a uniform. The uniform is the same practices followed by every nation. So that is become a uniform rules. That is what these rules are. Simplify the trade facility. So facilitating trade in a in a more simplistic manner, the rules will giving you a definition. Okay, so if you are applying UCP, this is how the trade should take place. So the UCP is supporting to ensure whenever there is a uh, whenever there is a situation, how this could be handled, the UCP will support. So that will give the definition. Okay, this is how the document should. This is how it should be handled. This is how. So the UCP giving in-depth knowledge when it comes to. So the International Chamber of Commerce is the institution you call ICC that published uh, these these rules, right? So no, we are going to study now letter of credit, right? So the first thing, how the letter of credit, let me explain how the letter of credit is going to operate, right? So you know there is a buyer. Don't worry about the other words. Huh? Just simply take buyer and seller. Simply take buyer and seller. These two are different countries. Buyer in one country, seller in one country. Shall we take an example so that you will have a better understanding? So we will take an example. Let's say one of the Sri Lankan buyer want to buy a vehicle. Say example, vehicle is not currently is stopped, but still we take an example so for you to better understand. Okay. So one of the Sri Lankan buyer want to buy a vehicle from Japan. So there is a nice vehicle, Toyota, whatever. You want to buy the vehicle. So the the buyer, Sri Lankan buyer, communicating with the whatever that car company in Japan. So they are directly communicating, right? So when they are directly communicating, now the seller will tell him, okay, we will get into. So he will find out what is the buyer's requirement, and the seller will issue an invoice, and he will tell that invoice, okay, this is my payment method. So he will insist the buyer to open a letter of credit. So in the sales contract, which is called pro forma invoice, issue a pro forma invoice. So whenever there is a trade transaction, the seller will issue a pro forma invoice. In the pro forma invoice, he will tell, okay, this commodity I can supply. This is the description of the goods. These are the terms and condition. And he will, under the payment, he will say this has to be, the payment method should be open a irrevocable letter of credit. Irrevocable letter of credit. So we will learn that word, irrevocable letter of credit, right? So this is the requirement of the seller. So seller, when he issue the sales contract, he will give an invoice, which is called pro forma invoice, to the buyer. Okay, I can give you this vehicle. Since you have communicated to me, I can give you this brand new vehicle under these conditions. And the payment term is you have to open a letter of credit. Now the buyer has got the pro forma invoice. The pro forma says the letter of credit to be open. So where can he go? Can anybody tell me where the place he has to go? He has to go to, because we know authorized dealer is the bank. He will go to the bank, where he will go to his bank and tell the bank, okay, I got a pro forma invoice. I want to issue an LC in favor of the seller. So the issuing bank, he will have an arrangement with the issuing bank. So think now, if a particular person go to his bank and tell the bank, I want to open a letter of credit. So he is the buyer. He's going to buy something. So he says, I want to buy something. I want to import a car. Now my seller wanted to open a LC in favor of him. Can you support me? So it is the relationship between his bank and the buyer. So the buyer, if he is a regular importer, definitely he will have some facility with the bank. Otherwise, if he's a one-off import, the buyer will tell the bank, okay, the bank will tell, okay, we can issue the LC, we will support you, and you have to give us the money in advance. Money in advance. Because the buyer is the first time want to doing an import with the bank. So they have no facility. So the buyer has to give the money in advance, full value. Let's say the LC values. Suppose say the LC values, for example, let's say 3 million Japanese yen, right? So we will 3 million Japanese yen. Let's say it's about 5 million rupees, about 5 to 6 million rupees, rupee equivalent. So 3 million Japanese yen can be issued. The value is about 6 million rupees. Let's say 6 million rupees, 3 million Japanese yen, Sri Lanka rupees 6 million. So the buyer will tell the bank, okay, look here, I have 6 million. I will give you cash. You open the LC. Then the bank will take the money upfront. That is you called cash margin. So when an importer doesn't have any facility, when he wants to the banks to open LC, he has to give a cash margin. that you call 100% cash margin. 100% cash margin if he give the full value. Sometime, if the buyer says, okay, if the buyer has been a long-standing customer of the particular bank, and the bank can take a call and say they will say, okay, give us 50% cash margin, 50% you pay when the goods comes. They will have arrangement depending on the relationship. If the buyer with a close relationship with the bank, he might say, I can give you on 50%, 50% when it comes. But subject to remember, there is no local regulation. If this commodity comes, it has to be 100% cash margin, then the buyer has to give 100% because that's a local regulation. If a vehicle is imported, 100% cash margin to be obtained, then bank can't give any facility. If there's a local regulation such, the bank can't give a facility. If there is no local regulation, it's the discretion of the bank. Bank can take a call. Okay, you pay 50% cash margin, 50% with our relationship. When the goods come, you pay the balance. So there could be different arrangement the buyer can have with the bank, right? If say the buyer is a regular importer, is every time is a car dealer importing vehicle on a monthly basis, then he will definitely has a facility with the bank. Then he will have a LC facility. He will have a limit also. He will mortgage his property and he will establish a permanent limit to open LC for 10 million rupees. Then every time he can open within the 10 million LC. So so you should understand when the buyer goes to the issuing bank just doesn't want to issue the LC. There should be some arrangement. Why should issuing bank issue LC on behalf of the buyer? Where they are taking undertaking on behalf of the import, on behalf of the buyer, and trying to give undertaking to somebody else, right? Okay. Now let's coming into the situation. Now you know what is the arrangement. 100% cash margin, maybe when there's nothing taken, absolutely nothing taken, because this particular customer is one of the well-known customer. It is a bank call. So you may open without anything. So how do you call that? Nil margin. NIL, nil margin. You have not taken any security. It is simply clean basis. You simply take the customer because the customer is high individual net worth. He has a billion of deposit. So you might not take. Say, let's take example: a doctor comes to open a LC to import a vehicle. If there is no regulation, local regulation, when it comes to vehicle, 100% cash margin has been taken. When there is no regulation, the bank might open a nil margin because he's a doctor having substantial deposit with the bank. Bank will take a call. It's a nil margin. So you know what is the arrangement, right? So with that, the bank going to agree to issue LC. Now bank will prepare that, right? And they are going to communicate these LCs to another bank, because what happens in the sales contract, remember, the seller has mentioned all the details. Yes, the payment term LC, the LC has to issue to my bank, which is Tokyo Bank. He has mentioned his bank also, Tokyo Bank, Japan. So when the performer invoice is given to open LC, there is LC application. The issuing bank will give it to the importer. Importer will fill all the application. With that, he signs. Then the documents are ready now with the performer. Bank knows to which bank the LC should go. It's a Tokyo Bank. Suppose say the issuing bank has the RMA that we learned in the first class. You have a relationship with the bank, right? Where now you will be transmitting through the communication mode you call SWIFT. Through the SWIFT, the bank will send the LC. The LC is going through an advising bank in the seller's country, which is Bank of Tokyo. So LC going through. Now the advising bank, which is the Bank of Tokyo, what they will do, they verify the authenticity of the instrument and giving it to the seller. Here there is a LC for you. So seller will go and collect the LC from their bank. Now the seller will go through the LC. So LC is a document. It's running into few pages, right? So that will have all the information. The buyer's details, its address, LC, there will be unique number for the LC, amount is mentioned, the details of the vehicle, and the document that is required by the buyer to clear the vehicle, all that is specified. And what is the date of shipment? What is the last date of shipment? When is the LC? LC will have the expiry date. The LC will become null and void after the expiry. What is the expiry date? All that is mentioned in the letter of credit. So when the letter of credit is received by the seller go through the condition and whether he is willing to do that. If he is happy, he will do it. Suppose say the buyer has given the time frame, the goods has to be imported by before 31st March 2022. LC open, he has given the shipment date last date as 31st March 2022. The LC is now gone there, right? Advised by the his bank, Tokyo Bank advised. The seller has the LC now. Seller looks at the LC, seller feels because he has lot of order. But if he feels that he can't ship it before 31st March, right? What is the next option? No, he is not willing to ship. He can't ship 31st March. So what he will do, immediately he will call the buyer and tell the buyer, look here, you send me the LC, I'm okay. All the terms and conditions perfectly okay. I'm agreeable. There is a small change. I can't ship it by 31st of March 2020. I need other one more month. Then what will happen? Then again buyer will go to his bank. He will tell the bank, I want to send a change to the original date. I want to do an amendment. So now that is again other message, which is part of the original message. Then the amendment goes again through the same channel. It will be go to the same Swift. Advising bank got a small message. It is related to the original LC, but the amendment, now the latest shipment date to read as 30th of April 22 instead of 31st March. Now the seller got 1 month. Now he got the amendment done. Right. He's fine now. Now what he will do, on that date comes, he will ship the goods. He will ship the goods. He will arrange a vessel, ship, and he will go and ship the goods. Now he collect all the documents, right? The seller will have the document because he handed over the shipment. He will have the shipping company given a document called bill of lading. He prepares other documents, invoice and all he prepares. With the LC, he goes and gives the documents back to the bank. He goes and gives the documents back to the bank. Now that bank name change. It is not advising bank. You can see it's a nominated bank. In the LC, there's a bank nominator. So the nominated bank will go through the documents, and if they're happy, they will pay, or they might. It's a decision taken by the nominated bank. They might anyway. They might pay or they might not pay, but they will collect all the documents, send it to the issuing bank. The documents are going back to issuing bank. This part is not done by Swift. And this part is the documents are courier. Physical document has to go. So this mode of documents going to the bank by courier, not by through. You can't send the Swift. It has the physical document. So it has to be by courier. So documents will flow from nominated bank to the issuing bank by courier. Now the bank has received the document. Issuing bank has received the document. They will have to go through because they are given assurance to the seller. If we meet all the terms, they will pay. So they have to ensure whether the LC and the set of documents they received are meeting all the requirements. They will check. That is what the important job when you're opening LC, when the set of documents come, you have to check the documents with LC. The number of invoices are there, whether any mistakes are there. If there are any mistake, you have to find out the mistake and keep the bank informed. There's a mistake. And you will tell the nominated bank there's a mistake. We will communicate to the applicant. If he is willing to accept it, we will communicate you. So when there's no mistake, everything fine. The bank also checked everything. Now once they checked everything, documents are ready. Now they will ask the importer and release the document. Come and take the document. At this stage, you have to remember, if you have taken cash margin 100, whatever, now you are going to work out, because when the documents come, you know the exchange rate. Now you need to pay. So now you work out. You have taken a margin roughly whatever the date at the time of opening the LC, the Japanese yen was 2 rupee. Now when the documents come, the Japanese yen is now 1 rupee and 2 rupee and 5 cents. It has increased by 5 cents. So if your margin covers, there's no problem. If there any shortage or excess, you will debit or credit this account and you release the documents. If you have not taken anything, it's a clean basis, then you will have to take the entire thing and release the documents. When the documents are given to the buyer will go and clear it. Buyer will go and clear the consignment. So this is the simple operation of LCs. Right. Now, once the goods are clear, the transaction is over. Now, I have put different names, right? So you can see I have put applicant, I have put beneficiary. Why? Because when the sales contract says the buyer has to open LC, he's become the applicant. Okay, he goes to the bank to open LC. So he's only making the request to the bank. So he's become applicant. So in a letter of credit, applicant is the importer is the applicant, or the buyer is the buyer is applicant. So you can use different words. The common business jargon or the norms is buyer seller. In international trade, you may call it as an importer or applicant. In a LC, you have the applicant because the person who opens the LC become applicant. So the importer or the buyer is applicant. The bank is become issuing bank. Okay, so his bank become issuing bank, and the bank who advised the LC to the seller is advising bank. They are advising. Their role is to verify the instrument has come from the authentic institution in Sri Lanka. That is the Tokyo Bank responsibility, right? And when the LC is advised, they verify the authenticity and they advise. Now, the seller is the person going to benefit out of the sales transaction. So he become a beneficiary. So that is the name is given instead of seller is become a beneficiary. In a LC only these names are used. So when the seller ship the goods, when he give the documents, the advising bank role is changing to nominated bank. Advising bank just to advise LC. When he ship the goods, when his documents are ready, he handed over. It can be the same bank. Their role changes. Their way now they are tackling the documents. Their roles change as a nominated bank, right? So you should know that if somebody asking who are the parties to LC, who are the parties now, you can tell applicant, issuing bank, advising bank, beneficiary, and the nominated bank. Now I am asking you a question. Anybody who can even tell the answer? Unmute it and you can tell the answer. Okay, but it's a simple question. LC is a contract between two parties. Two parties. Now, I have mentioned so many parties. I mentioned applicant, issuing bank, advising bank, beneficiary, nominated bank. But LC is a contract out of these. LC is a contract between two parties. Who are those two parties? Can anybody tell me? Contract between two parties. LC is a contract between two parties. Who are those two parties? Just whatever. You can just try. Need not be perfect. Just give your answer. LC is a contract between. Yeah, it's LC is a contract. You can see when the buyer and seller enter into sales contract, seller is not willing to send anything. Seller waited until he get the LC, right? When issuing bank sells LC, advising bank advise LC, seller go through the LC, thereafter only ship the goods. Therefore, LC is a contract between issuing bank and the beneficiary. Always remember, LC is a contract between issuing bank and the beneficiary. There's no other people, right? With that knowledge, now you party to document issuing bank. You know what is issuing bank. Issuing bank is the importer bank who issue the LC on behalf of the importer to pay against compliant documents. What do you mean by compliant document? The document the seller or the beneficiary give it to his bank should be meeting all the condition in the letter of credit. If all the documents are meeting the requirement, it's become a compliant document. Mean matching. All the requirements are met. Become a compliant document, right? Issuing bank. Applicant. It is the importer who applies to his bank for the LC. It's become applicant, right? The importer is the applicant. The exporter bank who receives and authenticate LC authenticates. Authenticate means they will ensure this has come LC has come from a particular bank because then only the exporter will perform. You want authenticated instrument. So that is the role of advising bank. So they verify it has come from the issuing bank. The exporter who get paid under the LC is a beneficiary. The exporter's bank who receive the documents from the exporter for drawing under the LC. Okay. So now you know the documentary credit, how the documentary credit. So the documentary credit LC will be mentioning about four type of payment method. Under LC, you will have the credit will be availability. Available with nominated bank by side payment. Available is nominated by deferred payment or acceptance or negotiation. There are four way of. Don't worry about question will not be asked about these. This is for your betterment, for you to have a better knowledge. When you are sitting for exam paper, the basic things only will be questioned. For you to better understanding, I'm just sharing with you so that you will have a better understanding when it comes to letter of credit availability. And we will study UCP and all. I have a certain article. Don't worry about exam point of view. You need not to worry. But for the knowledge sake, I'm sharing with you, right? There are four way of side payment, deferred payment, acceptance, or negotiation. These are the four way a letter of credit will available. So briefly look at what is side payment. Side payment mean, as I told you, you have to take the same example. The Japanese person, once he ship the car, he goes and handing over to the his bank. That bank become a nominated bank. If the payment says, if the LC will say, LC available with a nominated bank by side payment. The LC will have four type of by side. If the LC says by side payment, it is immediate payment. When they sign the documents, they can pay the beneficiary. So it is a call the nominated bank has to take. Nominated bank, when they check the document, if they found the documents are perfectly in right, they will immediately pay it and claim it from the issuing bank. So that is what by side payment mean. Immediately the beneficiary get paid. The nominated bank can pay. So that is called side payment. So you can see side payment mean nominated bank determine the presentation made is complying. It has to be complying. Comply mean all the documents has to match with the terms and condition of the LC. For example, if the LC states 30th of April is the last date of shipment, the BL is dated 15th of April. It is complying. Within the shipment date, the shipment is done. Right? Everything done. The LC value is also according to the, there's no LC value says 3 million. Japanese say you have shipped exactly 3 million. Everything is matching. That is called compliant. The terms and condition and the documents given are to be tallied. That is called compliant. When everything is perfect, the nominator bank can pay to the beneficiary and they can claim it from the issuing bank. Because issuing bank only nominated the bank as a nominated bank. So issuing bank has to pay, provided all the terms and condition has to be agreed. If that is perfectly all right, the even issue nominated bank can debit straight away to the issuing bank account if they have arrangement, or they will claim reimbursement. They will claim reimbursement. The LC will have a option to claim reimbursement or debit the issuing bank account. One of the things will happen. That is called side payment. Sometimes deferred payment. Deferred payment means, remember, in this LC, the seller has given time. The buyer, let's say 2 months credit period given. So the buyer has to pay after 2 months time. Right. Now the seller has given time frame. Under LC, they are given a time frame. That when the time frame is given, you will have called deferred payment. So deferred payment and acceptance, both are coming from time frame. There are time frame given by the seller. It's open LC, but they are given time frame, 2 months time frame under the LC for the buyer to pay later. Because what happens, certain commodities, when you are a regular importer, let's say you are buying something from Japan, electrical goods, right? When you are buying electrical goods, you need time, clear the goods and sell it and realize the money. The working capital flow takes time. 2 months to 3 months, the working capital cycle takes. So you need to have a time frame from the supplier. Therefore, you ask the supplier, I am buying from you the electrical goods. I will open the LC, but please give me a credit period of 2 months. So the seller will give the 2 months credit period under LC. That is you call deferred payment. But what is the difference between deferred payment and acceptance? Also, there is something called acceptance we are going to study. These two differences, in the deferred payment, a bill of exchange is not involved in a deferred payment. So remember, when there is a trade between two parties, right? When the seller gives a credit period, there is always a bill of exchange seller prepares it, because seller giving a credit period to the buyer, right? Then what happens? The seller prepares the bill of exchange and saying addressed to the buyer, asking the buyer to, once he accept it, to release the documents. That kind of arrangement comes called bill of exchange. That kind of when there is a credit arrangement between two parties, generally the creditor, the seller prepares the bill of exchange. So when there is a bill of exchange involved, you call acceptance. When there is no bill of exchange, you call deferred payment. Under deferred payment, there is a credit period given by the seller to the buyer. So what happened when the LC says by deferred payment, then the bank, nominated bank, the seller, once he ship the goods, he collect all the documents, go to the nominated bank. Now he knows the LC is not by side payment, it is by deferred payment. Now by looking at the payment term, the seller knows he won't get the money because he has given the 2 month credit period. But he has the option asking the bank whether the bank can pay. Later, if you have arrangement with the bank, the nominated bank can pay you in advance. And when the money comes, they will take the interest or whatever and pay you the net amount. So that is the arrangement between the and the seller, beneficiary, and the nominated bank. That kind of a payment is called deferred payment. Where the difference between deferred payment and the acceptance is there is no bill of exchange involved. So if you look at the acceptance means you have to accept the bill of exchange. There will be a bill of exchange, same payment method. There again a credit period given, 2 months credit period is given by the seller to the buyer. But here there is a bill of exchange. So remember, when in certain countries bill of exchange are not used, because when you sign a bill of exchange, there is a stamp duty. That is the reason in certain countries bill of exchange are not used, because charges are there. So instead, the bill of exchange certain countries do not use, then you switch on to this payment, deferred payment. The bill of exchange can be usable when there is no stamp duty. In the beneficiary applicant country, they use the acceptance bill of exchange. Only difference is that. So here, same thing, 2 months credit period is there. Now seller prepares the bill of exchange. And that will be addressed either to the nominated bank or to the buyer. And one of them will sign it and he will get paid at maturity. Then the last one, negotiation. It is kind of a when a seller exports the document, he wants the documents to be purchased by somebody, right? He wants the money immediately. So what happened? The seller will go to the bank, nominated bank, asking the bank, can you purchase these documents? So in negotiation, there could be bill of exchange involved or cannot involve. Both ways it's possible. There's no necessary bill of exchange, but still the bank who's going to buy the documents and pay. So the nominated bank has to do that on their own discretion. So these are the 4 methods for you to just to know. In LC, there are 4 type of way of doing it. These are too technical. It is only the people who are doing trade only should understand. But for you to have some sort of a knowledge when you are doing foreign exchange, when you say, I know the LC, and just aware there are 4 type of payment method under LC side, by deferred payment, by acceptance, by negotiation. Just for you to know that. Okay, then few article about UCP. This is again for your knowledge, not for the exam point of view, not for your test purposes. You will have end of the course, you have a test. Don't worry about this UCP and all. You don't get a question. You will get the basic question, but you do understand at a fair knowledge of when you are doing a trade, right? Under UCP, Uniform Customs and Practice. Why these UCP rules were prepared by ICC? Because there are different countries having different practices. Trade itself is very complex. You just think of, I'm giving an example. Think of when you're buying something from Japan, right? Think the Japanese seller, he prepares it, right? His local regulation will have a different way of doing things, handling things. He has to go to customs, give the container, and the custom formalities are different, and the documents are handed over. Then he will give it to the shipping company. Then the shipping company will load the container into the ship. Then the vessel is traveling from Tokyo port all the way to Colombo port, right? When the goods are coming here, when the goods are landed, then all our Sri Lankan regulation will apply. Now 2 different countries involved, 2 different procedures, local regulation, Japan and Sri Lanka are quite different. But when you are having an environment like that, when you do trade transaction, there should be common language used for both parties, both nation to understand. That kind of rules only you call uniform customs and practices. So when you apply UCP, when you're doing a trade transaction, everybody knows, okay, this is what this means. What does this mean? This is what it means. So UCP simplifies the procedure. So that is what UCP, the objective of UCP is to ensure these contractual rules are uniform and each person to understand what is his role to play, right? So it gives a common interpretation of what is commercial invoice, how the commercial invoice should be worded, commercial invoice should be signed. All that is given in the UCP. So you will have a set of rules for you to follow. For when there's a dispute come between, if the LC is subject to UCP, then you apply the UCP. When there's a dispute, when it refer to the court or whatever, they go by the UCP because the LC is subject to UCP, right? So generally, whatever LC that are open is subject to UCP, unless you have to specifically mention in the LC, this LC is not subject to UCP. Both parties should agree. So okay, right now. So as I told you, the UCP is came into force 1933. The current version is UCP 600. Uh, it's brought in July 2007. There are few articles. The important articles only I have taken. You need not to do. Just to know, the UCP will apply, documentary credit will apply, indicate that subject to these rules. It will say UCP. Uh, uh, if the both parties doesn't want UCP to apply, both party has to mention, agree, and the LC will say this LC is not subject to UCP. If the wording is not there, it is subject. If the wording, if this LC doesn't subject to UCP, if the wording is not there, the LC is automatically subject to UCP because everybody except UCP LC. So, and you learn the word. I told you the LC to be open, irrevocable LC. The Article 2 says irrevocable LC. What do you mean by irrevocable LC? Irrevocable LC. Now remember, when the issuing bank, when they take a same example, the Sri Lankan person want to import a vehicle, right? He went and opened LC. He gave 3 million Japanese yen equivalent in Sri Lanka rupee. He opened the LC. The bank issued the LC and sent it to the advising bank, and the seller, beneficiary, got the LC. When he got the LC, the transaction is confirmed. The issuing bank undertaking is already given. Now, the importer cannot come and say, I want to cancel this. You can't do that. Or even issuing bank, there's a applicant as a issue. Applicant has a bad relationship with the bank. Now, issuing bank can't go back to the beneficiary and say, we will cancel our LC. No, they can't do that. Or the seller can't come and say the vehicle prices has gone up. This guy opened LC for 3 million Japanese yen. The vehicle prices are 4 million. I can't sell. No, even seller can't do that. That is what you call irrevocable. Once the LC is open, it cannot be cancelled by any party. Cannot cancel by. It has to be cancelled by all parties concerned. Buyer has to agree, issuing bank has to agree, seller has to agree. If all parties agree, LC cannot be, LC can be cancelled. If not, LC cannot be cancelled. Therefore, LC is a irrevocable undertaking. That means cannot be irrevocable. Revocable without IR is called revocable. IR added, irrevocable. Irrevocable means cannot be cancelled, cannot be changed, cannot be amended. Once LC is open, it cannot. It constitute a obligation, definite undertaking, specific undertaking. You can't change it, right? That is what Article 2 talks about. Compliant presentation, you know, it is accordance with the terms and conditions of the LC is called compliant presentation. Article 3 says the credit is irrevocable even if there is no indication. Even when there is no indication in the LC, according to article, all LCs are irrevocable, right? Branches of a bank in different countries considered as separate. So, for example, branches of the bank in different countries. Let's say Standard Chartered Bank in Sri Lanka, Standard Chartered Bank in Japan are two different. Same bank, but different countries are considered as different banks. So that is what considered. Even Sri Lanka Standard Chartered Bank opened the LC favoring Standard Chartered Japan. two different banks, because Sri Lanka Standard Chartered Bank and the Japanese Standard Chartered Bank, one organization. For the UCP purposes, it is considered as two different banks. Same bank's branches considered as two different banks. Okay. Uh, Article 4, right? Credit by its nature, separate transaction. So what is the underlying transaction for them to buy a vehicle? There is a pro forma invoice issued. That is the underlying transaction, right? It is to safeguard the payment only. This seller told him to open the LC. That is to ensure the payment. Nothing to do with their trade. Their trade is a sales contract between both parties. That is the primary transaction. That is the underlying transaction. So remember, when two parties are agreed, that is the separate underlying transaction. If there any dispute comes, they have to deal between those two parties. Bank is only coming to secure the payment. Therefore, the Article 4 clearly says the credit is a nature by separate transaction different from the underlying transaction. Though when you open LC, you may relates to the performer invoice. The LC is related to the performer invoice. You can give the underlying transaction reference number, but if the underlying transaction is different, that is what happened. Well, I give you an example. Let's say you want to buy a vehicle, right? Let us go through this document, then I will explain to you. Banks are deal with documents, not with goods and services. So remember, banks are dealing with documents only. They don't deal with the goods and services, right? They don't deal with goods. They are only dealing with documents. Now I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to buy a vehicle, right? You agreed everything. The vehicle has come. When you clear the vehicle, you see it is not a brand new vehicle. It is a reconditioned vehicle. So now you have a problem with the seller. You can't blame the bank. Bank has look at the document. Bank has opened every document came brand new vehicle. But in reality, when you go and clear the container, you saw it is a used vehicle. So here the seller has cheated you. So you need to take a legal action under your primary contract, not under the LC. Banks only to facilitate the payment, they open the LC for you to facilitate the transaction. Your underlying contract between buyer and the seller, there is a sales contract. So you need to take a legal action against the seller under the separate contract. That is your underlying contract. So remember, when somebody come and ask in the issuing bank here, when I have the used car, bank will say, sorry, we only to facilitate the payment, we open the LC. You have a separate contract. Because when you get into a contract, as a buyer and seller, you should know whom are you dealing with, right? That is what you have to be careful, right? So you should know your counterparty. So you have to be just because of somebody telling you to open LC, you should not go and open the LC unless you know the party going to ship the goods, right? You should know the reputation of the seller. He can non-perform or he can underperform. Now see what has happened in example. You want a brand new car, but you got the used car. But nothing can be done. The bank can only support you. Bank can tell their banker. Now you say same example. If you take the same issue where you got instead of brand new car, you got a reconditioned car. So you will come and tell the bank, I have a problem. I want a brand new car. So the bank will tell, okay, what do you want us to tell? Can you tell the nominated bank? Okay, the issuing bank can send a message to the nominated bank telling them, okay, this is what happened. Can you inform the beneficiary what has happened? When the nominated bank communicates the beneficiary, and if the beneficiary not giving any response, is evading, then nothing can be done. Then the bank will simply say, you have to take a separate legal action against it. If you want to take a legal action, we will support you. Or one thing what will happen in a situation like this, definitely the issuing bank will tell the nominated bank, if he is not obliging to their request, blacklist them. You know what has happened to People's Bank in Sri Lanka, right? Certain recently, when they open LC, they have not made the payment, right? The Chinese bank blacklist the People's Bank. So you can see that, right? A blacklist is possible. Here they blacklist the People's Bank. That is because they are not made the payment. So likewise, you can ask the Japanese bank to support us to blacklist the customer. So the bank can support you to uh, blacklist the customer, right? So it's a separate transaction. Banks do with the documents. Now Article 6 we just gone through. Credit must state whether available by UCP says it has to be mentioned available by four way: by side payment, by deferred payment, by acceptance, by nego. This is we have just gone through. I just explained to you each one, right? There are four payment methods under LC. The issuing bank is irrevocably bound to honor as of the time issue the credit. The issuing bank is has to issue when the People's Bank case. Why the People Bank has to make the payment when the seller perform? That is what Chinese bank blacklist the issuing bank. Why issuing bank said we can't pay? Issuing bank has to make the payment. If in this case also, if the issuing bank when the vehicle is imported, immediately when the vehicle is imported, the seller goes to the court and get an injunction order and giving it to the bank. Don't make the payment. I got an inferior car. If the issuing bank has to make the payment, issuing bank has no way to stop it unless the court order is coming and stop it. That is what exactly happened. Here the fertilizer company import fertilizer from Japan, from China, and went and got an injunction from the court and giving to the People Bank not to make the payment. As a result, People Bank didn't make the payment. But what happened? Chinese bank blacklisted the payment and they some other got the payment done. So you have to be very careful in trade. You will get blacklisted because once you given the irrevocable commitment, that is what I said. Irrevocable. Once LC is open, you are committed. You have to make the payment. You can't withhold. You have to make the payments. That is what is important. Issuing bank irrevocably bound to honor. So therefore, the Sri Lankan bank has to make the payment, whether the used car or reconditioned car or brand new car, they have to make the payment, right? Confirming bank, I think there is something. A confirming bank comes here. That is sometimes what happen when you are issuing LC, right? When you are issuing LC, say for the same example, now Sri Lanka it has some difficulties in economic shape. We are into a little bit difficult kind of a situation in economic wise, right? Now it's up to the seller to take a call. Seller might say, if the LC is opened by, let's say, Bank of Ceylon only opened the LC in Sri Lanka, the same LC, vehicle LC, the Bank of Ceylon opened the LC. If the Japanese seller feel Sri Lanka is a risky country, even though Bank of Ceylon opened the LC, he got an undertaking from the Bank of Ceylon, but still he feel there could be country collapse or Bank of Ceylon might collapse. So in that case, the seller might say, I want this LC to be added confirmation by one of his bank in Japan. So what happened? Then one of the Japanese banks to take the issuing bank responsibility by adding confirmation to the LC. Now I told you the advising bank just advise LC. So the Japanese bank might tell, Japanese seller might tell the advising bank, which is Bank of Tokyo, for example, Bank of Tokyo to add confirmation and advise LC. What is the seller telling? Seller saying the advising bank, Tokyo Bank, can you do add confirmation? Add confirmation means they're telling you take the role of issuing bank and advise me. So the Bank of Tokyo has to take a decision whether they can do it. Whether they have an arrangement with the Bank of Ceylon, their LC to be added confirmation because Bank of Ceylon role is the underlying obligation Bank of Ceylon to make the payment. Why should Bank of Tokyo take the issuing bank responsibility? Unless they have both country as arrangement. That means Sri Lankan Bank of Ceylon and the Bank of Tokyo as arrangement. Whatever LC opened by Bank of Ceylon, the Bank of Tokyo will take the responsibility. They should have arrangement. They should have a credit line. Then Bank of Tokyo might do it on behalf of because they have a relationship for more than 20 years. Bank of Ceylon and Tokyo Bank. If a Bank of Ceylon LCs are strong enough, the Bank of Tokyo will add confirmation and advise. If they add confirmation, the bank will become adding confirming bank. So if a confirming bank is take the same role of the issuing bank, that is what you say. A confirming bank is irrevocably bound to honor to negotiate by adding confirmation. So if a bank adding confirmation, advising bank adding confirmation to the LC, they are taking the responsibility of the issuing bank. In what happened, and they are not going to make the payment. By adding confirmation, what will happen? They send the document back to issuing bank. If the issuing bank is failed to make the payment, confirming bank is obliged to make the payment to the beneficiary. That is what happened. By adding confirmation, you are taking only additional responsibility. Still, the primary responsibility lying with the issuing bank to make the payment. If the issuing bank fail, only the confirming bank has to make the payment. That is whenever there is a country. I think when you take Sri Lanka last 2 years, when we are having issue with the credit ratings downgraded, most of the our LCs opened by us have been requested by the beneficiary to add confirmation because they felt Sri Lanka is now categorized under risky country category because our credit rating has been downgraded to 2 notches down, right? Therefore, our LCs are not accepted by the foreign supplier, foreign beneficiary. They want their country to add confirmation. That is the issue when it comes to downgrading of a credit. There is an issue, right? Advising bank, advising the credit. I mean, yeah, advising bank role is to verify the authenticity. That is what Article 9 talks about. When you advise LC, you need to verify the authenticity of the LC. That is the apparent authenticity. That is the role of the advising bank, right? Article 14 allow the banks to 5 banking days to check the document. The issuing bank, before they make the payment to the beneficiary, they have the 5 banking days, 5 business days. It's a business, not business day, banking days. Banking days to check the document whether the documents are perfect. They have 5 working days, right? Then there is something called clean transport document. Clean transport document mean clean mean the word will not be appear in the bill of lading. The clean mean it is simply says there is no clause in the bill of lading to say there is a defect in the package. If there is a defect in the package, it's a dirty bill of lading, right? That means, in simple term, what happened when the shipping company issue the bill of lading? If the container what they are taken is damaged, they will not issue a clean bill of lading because by the time when they take the container itself damaged. They can't issue a clean bill of lading, right? This will generally do not take place in our because what happens when we do containers, we take the containers full load. So they're very unlikely because this is in different other mode of transport. The clean transport document come in the inland seaway water because mostly we do shipment in container basis, right? Sometimes when the loose container, it is a loose container load or less container load. You may call it LCL, right? When the things are not put in a container, there are a situation the commodity can be ever defective. The commodity has some defective. So then the shipping company will put a clause in the BLC. There is a defect condition of the goods. There is a damage in the goods when they accept that at the time of the accepting. When that kind of a clause appears, then it's not a clean bill of lading. A clean bill of lading means a clean transport document means there should not be a clause indicating there is a defect on the package. When there is no clause, it is a clean bill of lading. There need not be clean wording is there in the bill. The clause is not there, I mean it's a clean bill of lading. You need not to print the word clean. If the BL doesn't have any clause, that's a clean bill of lading. Right? If the clause is there, it is not a clean bill of lading. That is what the article says. Right? Yeah, generally insurance has to be taken for 110% of the goods value. If the goods is 100, you have to take the insurance for 110%. There could be other additional charges taking place in the commodity. Therefore, always in international trade, you take the insurance for 110% of the goods. If the goods value is 100, you have to take the insurance for $110, right? Always 110%, you have to take insurance according to article. Yeah, just two more articles to complete, right? Tolerance. Tolerance means as there are some commodity, you will have a tolerance. When the LC value exactly open for 10, if a vehicle comes, there is no tolerance. 3 million Japanese yen, okay. But when there are other commodity, when you deal in commodity like electrical items, bulbs, then cotton, fabrics, textile, various items, there are tolerance. That time sometimes tolerance is possible for the quantity, for the unit price, for the value of the LC. Tolerance means 5% here and there or 10% here and there. For example, if I tell you LC is open for $10,000, the seller as only can ship 9,800 because he doesn't have stuff. So it is not a discrepancy. It is not a mistake. Remember, when you check the document, if the tolerance is permitted, LC permitting tolerance. So you won't be able to match the 100% value. Sometimes you can short ship. Sometimes you can ship little more because one shipment you couldn't cover, you can cover in the second shipment, right? So there is $500 short, you can cover it in the next shipment. So that is why the tolerance is given in the LC. Value plus or minus 10%. If the value is $10,000, 10% is $1,000, right? Here and there. $1,000 can be added, $1,000 can be added or subtracted. You can ship 9,000 or you can ship 11,000, plus and minus. Price, unit price, or value or quantity. Tolerance is permitted. Then Article 38 talk about transferable letter of credit. What do you mean by transferable letter of credit? That means then in the same take example, Sri Lankan person open LC to get down a vehicle, right, from the Japanese person. The Japanese person, sometime if he doesn't have vehicle, he has other company manufacturing the same vehicle. They have two companies. So he will transfer the LC to the B company to ship. So at the time of opening the LC, the seller has to open a transferable letter of credit so that if he doesn't fulfill the vehicle, he can give it to one of the subsidiary company. The subsidiary is a B company. So the LC can be transferable. Once LC is open, A can tell the bank, transfer this LC to B. So now B is going to ship. So the LC is permitting transferable shipment. So that is also possible in a LC operation, transferable LC, right? So these are the articles we learn about in UCP, right? I just given you for you to just know, but something. What is URR, right? In the LC, remember when you're opening LC, say Sri Lankan Bank of Ceylon open the LC, right? They open the LC. You know LC is available by payment or by acceptance negotiation. They will have all these 4 type of LCs, right? Sometimes the issuing bank has to provide the reimbursement. Reimbursement means when they open the LC, they have to mention in the LC the nominated bank can claim the reimbursement from one of their USA bank. So the LC provide the nominated bank to claim the reimbursement provided all the terms and conditions are complied. So what will happen at the time when the issuing bank LC, let's say Bank of Ceylon issuing the LC, simultaneously Bank of Ceylon put the condition clause in the LC saying the nominated bank, if all terms comply, they can claim reimbursement from their dollar correspondent. Take example, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of Ceylon as a dollar account. So Bank of Ceylon will nominate JP Morgan Chase as their reimbursing bank. So while sending the LC to Tokyo Bank of Tokyo, Bank of Ceylon sent a separate message to JP Morgan Chase Bank nominating them as a reimbursing bank. They sent a separate message. That will permit JP Morgan to honor the claim when there is a claim from any of the Japanese bank or any of the nominated bank in Japan. So what happened, when you open LC, you have the LC number, right? You send the LC to Bank of Tokyo. But in the LC, you want to put a clause to say the LC, the nominated bank, whoever it is, they can claim it from the JP Morgan Chase by quoting the LC number. That is a clause in the LC. Now, what happened? When the nominated bank checked the document, they found everything in order. They want to pay the Japanese seller. They go through the LC. They found everything in perfect. They will claim, they will send a message to JP Morgan under the same LC number. They will send a message to JP Morgan. Under this Bank of Ceylon LC, we are claiming reimbursement 3 million Japanese yen. Now, JP Morgan will honor because what happened at the time of Bank of Ceylon issuing the LC, they have sent a separate message to JP Morgan. Under this LC number, 3 million can be paid by nominated bank. If they are restricted the nominated bank to a particular bank, they will mention the bank. Or they will say any nominated bank under this LC number, they can pay. So that is that regulation when they're sending authorization, reimbursement, what is the clause, what is the details to be captured, that regulation also they have published a rule called Uniform Rules for Reimbursement. That is 725. This all talks about how the reimbursement authorization, how the reimbursement claim to be made. This talks about, right? This 725. So you just to understand. All remember, these ICC publications are only facilitating international trade as an independent body, setting a uniform rules to facilitating all the parties involved. There are different bank can come, issuing bank coming. These are different bank in different countries. So uniform rules will facilitating these people when there is a element of doubt, when there is a certain things to be done. They will have a simplified terminology used for them to understand, so that everybody has a common language to understand. That is what uniform rules all about, right? So now we will just go through the documentary collection, which is the other one. There are two things. I told you we will study two type of payment. LCs we now study. Now you know what is LC, right? It is a irrevocable undertaking given by issuing bank to the beneficiary. Who are the parties? Issuing bank, right? You know the parties, right? Applicant, beneficiary, issuing bank, advising bank, nominated bank. You can also come to you are learning a different bank called reimbursing bank under URR, that regulation. Reimbursing bank, right? You know those banks type. Now we are moving on to the documentary collection. Here, here there is a two different payment method we are going to. Documents against payment, document against acceptance, right? So what happened? Unlike LC, this is for the buyer more convenient. He need not to open LCs, everything eliminated. He simply get the goods from the seller. Documents are coming through the banking channel, but no assets of opening LCs, keeping cash margin, everything taken off under documentary collection. So now you can see under documentary collection, trades become much easier for the buyer. Obviously, seller taking more risk now. Seller is taking more risk because seller taking more risk of the buyer, because seller now has been dealing with this particular buyer for a long period of time. Now seller has the flexibility to take a few risk about the buyer because he knows the buyer for some time. That is the reason I have been telling you, when you are doing international trade, when you as a seller, when you are dealing with an unknown buyer, you always start with a LC because your payment is secure. The moment you have an understanding about the buyer, you can switch on to different payment terms, right? Which we are not studying today, open account and advance payment, which are two extreme payment method. One is beneficial for buyer, one is beneficial for seller. Advance payment is more beneficial for the seller. Open account more beneficial for the buyer, which we are not going to learn today. We will learn during the course, probably next class or class after the next class. Open account and advance payment. But today we are learning documentary collection, which is compromising between open account and advance payment, but something better than the letter of credit, right? That is called documentary collection, right? Under this method, there are different parties coming in, right? So we will see the parties. You can see the seller become principal. So different name. The exporter bank, the seller's bank become remitting bank. There's a collecting bank, importer's country. There's a presenting bank. There's a importer, the buyer called Robbie. So you can see under documentary collection, same people, buyer, seller, bank, all are same, but their names are taking different. Their roles are identified in different names under documentary collection, right? So documentary collection, there are again set of articles, there are set of rules, right? What is this rules that you call uniform rules for collection? So you can see ICC facilitating. For LC, there are two sets of rules. UCP, uniform rules for reimbursement, URR. For uniform collection, also they have issued set of rules. Uniform rules for collection. So remember, you must wondering why these rules are coming in, because this is a global trade. Everybody, you can deal with a company in Chile, South America, or you may deal with the African country. Now think about the African settlement. They are different territory. Their practices are totally different. So, but they need to know what is their role by going through this URC or UCP. Then they're familiar, because their bank also should familiar. Then only you can deal with Otherwise, if the nobody knows in different part practices are different, you can't do international trade. That is where, as a facilitator, this ICC publishing this rule. So make sure everybody globally understand these trade terms, understand these best practices, uniform practices, right? Under documentary collection, also they issue certain articles, certain rules, how the documentary collection people should be named, what are the things to be done, what are the article giving definition, right? That is called URC, Uniform Rules for Collection. All rules are no laws, remember, these are rules. So, as I told you, there are two payment methods: documents against payment, documents against acceptance. There are two methods here, right? Documents against payment, documents against acceptance. Uh, I think I should give you a break now because we continue to 2 hours. I think we started at 1:30, 1:35. I think now 3:35. I think you need a break for 15 minutes, right? So I'll give you a break because continuously taking 4 hour session uh, require at least a smaller break. So I'll give you a break for you to 10 to 15 minutes. Now, at least now the time is 3. Let's say the time is, yes, 3:34. So we will meet around, uh, let's say, 3:50 maximum, right? Is that okay for you? Shall we start? You can see the screen, right? Can somebody say yes? You can see the screen, right? Shall we start? Okay. Okay. Now, okay. Under documentary collection, there are two components: documents against payment and documents against acceptance. Uh, these are the two payment methods coming under documentary collection. One is against payment. Documents are released against payment. Other one is documents are released against the acceptance of the bill of exchange. So that is under documents against acceptance, right? So how it works here, uh, there is a same sales contract which you can remember. Some person buying goods from the same. You can take the same example. Think of importer and exporter. So the sales contract issued. Here the exporter, the seller agrees to supply the particular commodity under the payment terms of documentary collection will proceed, right? Now what happened? So under documentary collection, there's no requirement for the importer to go and open the LCs. He agreed he will ship the goods. So as per the sales contract, he will go and ship the goods, right, on his own, because he says documents against uh, payment or documents against acceptance. So we'll try to learn both, right? He ship the goods. So you go to his bank and hand over the documents. And now the bank's name is, there's no advising, there's no nominator. It's simply it's a remitting bank. The remitting bank is to remit the documents, to send the documents uh, directly to the importer's bank, which could be the collecting bank as same as the presenting bank, right? What they will do, or here you need to understand payment method, right? So documents against payment mean here what has happened, the exporter exports the commodity and he collect all the documents and go and handing over the documents to his bank. His bank is called remitting bank. So only the same, it could be Bank of Tokyo, same bank, right? The just because of he handles he try to deal with a different payment method, payment mode, the role of the bank become remitting bank under the documentary collection. So you can see the role of the bank changing as per the different payment modes are used. So here the payment method is document again collection. So the collection under collection, the exporter bank become a remitting bank. The bank role is just to send the documents, right? And the importer bank, collecting bank, they collect the document and inform the importer there's a set of documents, come and collect it. At that time, remember, documents against payment mean the importer has to make the payment for him to clear the documents. Then he will go and clear the goods. He will go and clear the goods after making the payment and collect the documents and clear the goods. That is documents against payment. This could happen this way. If it is a documents again acceptance, as here the documents will be only handing over to the importer. There will be an additional document called bill of exchange, would be accompanied with the shipping documents, with the same set of documents. There will be an additional document called bill of exchange also accompanied. That bill of exchange document will be given to the importer for his acceptance. So the moment that bill of exchange would have prepared by, definitely, as I told you, why the bill of exchange getting involved in trade operation, when there is a credit transaction, when there is a specific time period given by the exporter to the importer or the seller to the buyer, the seller prepares it to cover his exposure towards this particular importer. He himself prepare a document for bill of exchange, and he prepares and he signs it, and he will make that address that particular document to the importer, saying that he hereby agree to make the payment as per the agreed terms, maybe 60 days or whatever time period given, and that assurance, that particular credit period which is given by the exporter to the importer agrees that he knows when the date comes or whatever the maturity date comes, he has to make the payment. So he accepts the condition. So it is a paper written document where the seller will highlighting the financial commitment to be made by the importer, that he is willing to accept the commitment. The moment he accepts it, is become the bill of exchange. Until such time, you may consider as a draft. The draft become bill of exchange the moment he places the signature and accept it. Otherwise, you consider as it's a draft, set of draft. So the draft become bill of exchange. Once the drawee places his signature, accept it, it become a bill of exchange. Then he's obliged to make the payment. So once he signed the bill of exchange under documents again acceptance, he will go and clear the document. So this diagram shows both payment methods: documentary against documents against payment, documents against acceptance. What is the difference between two? One is payments are made upfront so that documents are released. It's straightforward, documents against payment. Under documents against acceptance, why that particular documents against acceptance is used here? That here the buyer enjoying a credit period. So the credit period is specified in the form of a draft by the seller addressed to the buyer. Okay, I am giving you this payment credit period. You are aware of this payment credit period, and you should make the payment after the expiry of the credit period. And the committed the drawee, the buyer, it is, since it is addressed to him, he will become a drawee. Then he will accept it, and he will make the payment. Okay, so the collecting bank role, once the bill of exchange is accepted, to release the document, and he go and clears it. Now, if he doesn't make the payment, the collecting bank has no responsibility here, remember. Unlike issuing bank, take all the responsibility. But here in documentary collection, these banks' role as a remitting bank, as a collecting bank, or as a presenting bank, simply they exchange documents as per the instruction of the principal. The principal is the person who gives the instruction. So that is what the exporter is considered under documentary collection as a principal. He only takes the initiative to do everything. So he gives the instruction to his bank, where his bank become a remitting bank. I exported something. I wanted you to send these documents to my buyer's bank, my importer's bank. So the remitting bank will send the documents to the buyer's bank, which is generally called collecting bank. Generally collecting, and they when they present it to the drawee is one and the same bank. Very rarely collecting bank and presenting banks are different. So generally the one and the same bank, collecting and presenting bank. Right? And when they present it, there are two options. If it is a DP, the importer has to make the payment. If it is a DA, there is a bill of exchange which needs to be accepted by the importer. When he accepts it, it's a condition. Once he accepts it, it's become the payment. The documents will be released, and he will clear the goods, and he will make sure the payment is made at the maturity. If he doesn't make the payment, the collecting bank has to keep the remitting bank informed. The accepted draft remain unpaid. The remitting bank in turn will inform the principal. So the principal eventually talk to the importer and find out why he has not made the payment. So either he might have the reason to say, valid reason to say, or he will ask some more credit period. Then accordingly the payment will be settled. But you could see in this kind of payment mechanism, the bank's roles are just to simply uh, exchanging documents. There is no undertaking, there is no payment obligation on the part of the banks. So so in these kind of payment, who has taken the high risk here? It's definitely the exporter has taken a risk here. Why he has taken a risk? Why he resort to this kind of payment method, documentary collection? Because he knows about the drawee. He knows the importer. Sometime he has been dealing with the importer. So the importer is a trustworthy person. Now the exporter knows. Then only he switch on, because initially he wouldn't have started with DP, documentary collection. He started LC. Once a trust, once a relationship is well established, they know each other, they visited each other. Now they can resort to this payment method, right? So as I told you, there is a set of rules, uniform rules for collection. Uh, this is again published by International Chamber of Commerce. This will specify the definition of uh, Article 2 specify collection mean handling by banks documents. Yeah, collection mean handling by banks of documents. Bank handles the document, that is collection. Documents mean it could be financial document and commercial. So all documents, say commercial invoice, bill of lading, maybe certificate of origin, all this is called commercial document. Financial documents is only bill of exchange. So there could be financial documents and commercial document. That is documents mean. Financial documents means is a bill of exchange. Yeah, equivalent of bill of exchange are promissory note, checks, and other instruments. Commercial document mean invoice, transport document, which is bill of lading, other similar documents, or any other document which is not being a finance. What is not financial document? All other documents are considered as a commercial. So when you say documentary collection, it is the collection of financial documents accompanied by commercial document, which is in the case of documents again accepted. There is a bill of exchange involved. You consider that as a financial document. Eventually, you require commercial documents for any trade. So the commercial documents in any way appears in both cases. There are two cases I have given. Documentary collection means collection of financial document accompanied by commercial document, or commercial document not accompanied. But in the case of a DP, there is no requirement of bill of exchange. It is only commercial document. So under DP, the second applies. Under DA, you require financial document, which is bill of exchange, because there is a credit period. So remember, the involvement of bill of exchange comes in when there is a credit period extended by one party to the other party. In a normal bill of exchange, is prepared by the creditor addressed to the debtor. What is the creditor? Creditor himself preparing the bill of exchange, saying, I am Hereby, the buyer being a so and so hereby agree to make the payment after specific number of days, or after 60 days from the BL date, or after 60 days from the acceptance. There's a credit period given. So that it is always the creditor addressed to the debtor. It is a condition imposed by the creditor to the debtor. Debtor, on the top of the condition, he said, I am accepted. Once he accepted, that particular document become a valid document. That is become bill of exchange. Until such time, it's a kind of a draft. So draft get validated when the drawee place the official signature, it's get validated. So that is called bill of exchange. So bill of exchange is used generally. A credit period is granted by a creditor to the debtor, just to safeguard the payment obligation, just to binding somebody in writing, so that he committed in writing, so that when you have future some disobey, trying to evade from its responsibility, to just to bind him, you have something in writing. That is what the bill of exchange are used for, right? So that's what the article says. All documents sent for collection must be accompanied by a collection instruction. Yes, what happens here, when the principal export the goods, he go and giving it, the documents to the remitting bank. So he give the instruction, I want this document to be delivered against payment. He give all the instruction to the remitting bank. Remitting bank follow the principal instruction and simply passing on to the collecting bank or presenting bank. So here the bank role is simply passing the messages, passing the document. That's all. There is no obligation on the part of the banks. It is kind of a post office job. Whatever comes, they dispatch it. Whatever they come, they dispatch it. But they make sure they are dispatching as per the rules, as per the instruction. So here, the instruction collection should contain a bill of exchange payable at a future date. With the instruction, the commercial documents are to be delivered against payment. Now you can understand, when the documents are delivered against payment, there is no bill of exchange involvement, right? The documents are delivered against payment. So when the documents are delivered against payment, there is no bill of exchange future date. Yeah. So there is no necessity. That is what article says. Collection should not contain a bill of exchange. The collection document should not have a bill of exchange when the documents are released against payment. It's not really not required. So you need not to the principal should not disclose a bill of exchange when he give the instruction document to be released against payment, right? If a collection contain a bill of exchange payable at a future date, the collection instruction should state whether commercial documents are to be released. Yeah, when you are attaching the bill of exchange, you must mention whether the documents to be delivered payment or acceptance. You need to make sure. Just attaching the bill of exchange doesn't mean you are really required documentary, because the bank should know to follow the instruction. You are attaching a bill of exchange, but also you are telling the bank, no, the documents will be delivered against the acceptance if there's a bill of exchange. So if you attach a bill of exchange, and if you don't give the instruction whether it's released against acceptance or payment, the collecting bank will not release the document to the drawee without payment. So I just repeat it again. There is a set of collection documents coming. A bill of exchange is there with the collection documents. So you know what is bill of exchange. It will be definitely payable future date. It's the credit period given. But the instruction doesn't specify whether it is released against payment or not. That is what, in the absence of such statement, commercial documents will be released only against payment. So though there is a bill of exchange, if you don't give your collecting instruction to the remitting bank as a document to be released against payment or against acceptance, if you don't mention both, but you attach a bill of exchange, the collecting bank will only release to cover the maximum, to protect your interest. They will only release against payment. So as a result, when there is a delay come, it is because of your fault not giving proper instruction. It is not the responsibility of the collecting bank. When there is a delay, delivery delay or whatever, it's happened because of you have given improper instruction. The moment you attach a bill of exchange, you should give the instruction document to be delivered again acceptance, because you are given a bill of exchange. So it should be delivered future date, the payment should be made. So you have to give the instruction document to be released again acceptance. If you don't give the instruction, the collecting bank will only due against payment, because they only want to safeguard, because they don't want to take a risk of what happened if you come and say, who asked you to release the document. They always make sure collecting payment is much better position situation rather than giving documents. And because if you come and give a contradicting instruction, banks into problem, so they don't want to take that responsibility. So they will ensure the maximum precaution. So you have to be very specific about the instruction. Okay. So let us look at what is entrepot trade. So entrepot trade is where the goods are imported from one country, right? And the goods are not used for the domestic purposes. The importing country will not use the commodity. Instead, they ship to other country. So this kind of arrangement where uh, a, a person importing goods comes as a middleman, importing from one country. Let's say a Sri Lankan person importing some, uh, let's say, accessories which are used for a garment manufacture. A person in Sri Lanka, let's say a company in Sri Lanka, ex company in Sri Lanka, importing some of the accessories which could be used for garment manufacturing from China, and they send it to Bangladesh. You know, Bangladesh is a garment industry where they manufacture a lot of garments. They are one of the leading garment exporter in the world, right? So you import raw material or whatever intermediary goods from China without use for the local consumption, you re-export that commodity to Bangladesh. So by doing this kind of arrangement, you are making a profit. So what you will do, you will tell the Chinese person to supply a particular commodity to you at the rate of $1, and you will maybe price it to $1.10 or 15 cents. The additional margin what you keep is your profit, and to cover your cost or whatever. Because you need to export, you need to have a transport cost. So you cover your cost plus you will keep a certain margin. So that is your profit margin. So there are people who do the entrepot trade. So what happened in the entrepot trade, the fundamental of the entrepot trade, the import, when the goods are coming into a country, the import country will not use that particular commodity for domestic purpose. The imported goods can be kept in the separate bonded warehouse, and you can do the changes, or you maybe keep the goods and putting it into the different shipment vessel and send it to the third country, or you can even do some changes to the goods. So entrepot trade can be varies, right? So repacking, relabeling is possible, uh, or you may export directly from one country to another, where the goods procured from manufactured in one country shipped to other country without good physically arriving. So you can do it with even the vessel without coming into Sri Lanka. You can tell the Chinese person send it directly to Bangladesh. The same example I'm quoting. Without goods being coming from China to Sri Lanka, you can give the instruction the Chinese supplier directly supplying to send the documents to Bangladesh. Probably you will have an agent there, or you will have arrangement where the Bangladesh guy will go and clear it, and you will make separate invoice done to Bangladesh and get your commission, whatever. So that arrangement can be different. So if you want to make sure that the goods are going from Sri Lanka, you do some changes. You get the goods cleared, kept it in the bonded, because once you get the goods cleared, mean here when you clear, you must remember you have to pay import duty. That is when you clear the goods for imports. Here there is no clearance involved because you are not using for domestic purposes. So you have to keep the goods in the port itself. That is what separate bonded warehouse are kept for you to do some small changes to the good, because you want to maybe you want to remove the pack and you want to put your seal, because you want to show the Bangladesh buyer that your goods are coming from Sri Lanka. Though the goods are in reality goods are come from a different country, from China, you relabel that and you send the goods as a shipment, fresh shipment from Sri Lanka to Bangladesh. So you need to do the relabeling and simple processing. That is what the bonded warehouse are used, right? And offshore business where you, without any goods are physically arrive, you can do, or you can even transfer from the vessel. One vessel comes here, from that vessel you arrange it to other vessel and send it across without even get the goods going into the bonded warehouse. You transfer from one shipment to other shipment and send a let's say there's a vessel coming from China to Colombo. You unload the goods and putting into the vessel that going to the Bangladesh, right? You reroute it. So this is what you call entrepreneur trade. Entrepreneur trade, where as a middleman, if the Sri Lankan person involved in there, they are making a profit, foreign exchange profit, by getting the goods from one country shipped to the other country. The changing of the goods, the procurement, the process can be different. Either you can directly send from one country to other country, or you may do some changes in the bonded warehouse, or you may bring the goods to the ports and do the transshipment and send it to the different vessel and to the buyer's country. So all the possibilities are there, right? The term entrepreneur trade called transshipment port and historically referred to ports. Yeah, is actually uh, when you are importing from certain countries, the goods importing from directly from one country to other country may be very costly. In order to cut short this marine drive, uh, what you could do, the original of entrepreneur trade came in good old days. You get down from a closer country, the commodity, and you find a proper routing channel to send it to the particular country. So what happened? You get down from a goods to one port to your country, and you may do the changes or not doing changes, and you send it to the different modes. Cost saving one is, and you will keep a margin also. This is how the entrepreneur trade started in the good old days, uh, when there's no direct uh, sea route or air route to a particular country. Now, if you really look at it, Singapore and Dubai is become the entrepreneur hubs, right? I think I have given here, right? So you can see Singapore is there, Dubai is there, even Hong Kong, Amsterdam, London. These are important center for entrepreneur trade. So here, what happened? The goods can come from various countries to Singapore. That is what we are. I was telling, we are losing this opportunity. We are missing out the opportunity. Even our port has all the capabilities. One of the strongest entrepreneur trade a center in Asia, right? We are missing out the opportunities, right? Obviously, Singapore is already got into that. Even Hong Kong, right? So now Dubai is also highly involved in entrepreneur trade. So you can see oils and all everything coming from Singapore. So the goods are going from Dubai to Singapore, from all the way Singapore to Sri Lanka. So these are sea route where the transshipment port entrepreneur trades are much familiar, because they have catered to any number of vessel can come into their waters. So the unloading, loading can be much easier. They should have all the facilities. So these are some of the important centers for entrepreneur trade: London, Hong Kong, Amsterdam. So Europeans are covered under London and Amsterdam as well. And here, Middle East and Dubai covers. Hong Kong and Singapore covers by Asian region covered by these two countries, right? So some of the regulation. So in Sri Lanka, when you open when you get down in a motor vehicle, remember always you need to open a LC. Uh, Motor vehicle should only be imported by opening LC. In Sri Lanka, there is a regulation. So, and also when you are doing a payment for documents again, now you know what is the documents again acceptance, right? So when you are doing a document again acceptance, there is a number of days given to you for you to make the payment. From that maturity date, within other 6 months, you have to make the payment, right? So from the maturity date, you are given 180 days. From the date of maturity, so you have, when it exceeds 180 days, you have to get the approval from the controller of import exports. This is the local regulation. So when you want to get down a motor vehicle, the payment method is LC in Sri Lanka. There's no other payment method. It is only applicable to Sri Lanka regulation. Internationally, no. Australia can import vehicle from Thailand, or Thailand can import vehicle. Those countries have a different regulation. But local regulation only specific to Sri Lanka. So when you are importing vehicle, it has to be the local regulation or to open LC. That is mandatory. And if you anything on the documents again acceptance, you have to make the payment, because when you are importing something, there should be discipline. You can't import something and delay, disobey the payment, and that is not good for the country. So the import control, export control department monitoring. If somebody getting down a DA terms, he is not making his payment obligation, even maturity date comes, he has to make the payment. He can't delay it for years. So So there is a regulation when somebody get down a import DA terms from the maturity date, they are given another 6 month period within which they have to make the payment. In bank can't make the payment if a DA bill is matured after 7 months, 8 months. You have to get approved. Up to 6 months, you can make the payment. 180 days from the maturity date, right? So you must ensure if a bill of exchange is accepted, you have a maturity period to pay. From that day, you are given other additional 6 months to make the payment. If the 6 month expires, then you have to get the permission from the import export controller to make the payment, because they would like to know why the import has taken such a long time, because eventually it's not good for the country. So those are, so the duty of the bank. What is the duty of the bank? The furnish details on a monthly basis. This kind of a outstanding bill they have to furnish. If any bills are outstanding in the bank's record, local banks having a DA document, they are released and bill of exchange are signed. And the bill of exchange after maturity date, it exceeded 6 months. So the bank need to inform how many bills are outstanding like that exceeding 6 months. They on a monthly basis they are reported to the import controller. So they will call the importer and find out what is the reason. Sometimes there could be arrangement. The seller might say, okay, I will give you the full discount or whatever. So the settlement has to be done. So there is a monetary mechanism in place. This is to safeguard the interest of the country as well. Okay. Now, you recently, I don't know whether you are aware, there is a regulation came into force, which is most of the people are not happy, especially the exporters. Exporters have been told in Sri Lanka, the very recent regulation, they need to convert whatever the export proceeds coming from not only goods, even the service provider. They need to convert the export proceeds when it comes a particular month. Before the 7th of the following month, they have to convert everything. But they have the freedom of using such money for 5 purposes. I have given the 5 purposes. Let's say there is an exporter who import raw material and export it. Let's say there is an exporter, garment exporter, who import textile fabric from different country and exporting it. Value addition it, exporting it, right? Let's say there is an export order for $100,000, right? The $100,000 has come as export proceed. Now he need to import about $50,000. So he can make the money, the $100,000, he can use it for his next shipment to import material. So that is the first one. Outward remittance respect of current transaction of the exporter of goods and services. So he can use that money to buy the raw materials. If he is a garment exporter, if he get the export proceed, he can use that money to buy his raw material. Whatever commodity he required to do export, he can buy all those stuff. He can use that money. He can withdraw currency note for his travel purposes. If somebody want to travel, you can use it for travel purposes. The money that came in, provided you are traveling during that period. If you have as export, if you have borrowed some foreign currency loan, you have to repay that loan. So your repayment of loan can be for that purpose. Also, you can make use of the money that came in. So you say you have taken a loan from the bank, you have to pay 5,000 out of your 100,000. You can settle 5,000, the loan repayment. So you can make the repayment. If you want to buy your purchase of goods for your 1 month commitment for your import material you're importing and using for re-export purposes, for your 1 month commitment, you can buy goods and store and keep it for your 1 month commitment. That also permission is given. And if you're investing in a Sri Lankan development bond, there is something called investment opportunity. You can invest in bonds issued by Central Bank of Sri Lanka or Sri Lankan development bond. These two money are used to develop the Sri Lankan economy. Even you can invest in the bond where up to 10% of your export proceeds you can invest. So you just think of you are getting $100,000. You need not to convert immediately your 100,000 into rupees. That is not the regulation here. The regulation is very clear. If you bring $100,000, there are your financial commitment. Apart from after making all these financial committal, anything balance only to be converted into rupees. So sometime I mean, if you don't have any commitment, still you have an opportunity to travel to use or investment to use. Still, if you have taken a loan for your business development, you can even repay that loan. You can use it for these purposes, right? If you don't have any financial commitment, then you have to got to convert everything into rupee. That is what is regulation. Because what happens when we are short of foreign reserves, the central bank wants dollars because we don't have foreign reserve. Whatever dollar coming in as export proceeds need to be accumulated. What happened? These exporters just keeping it. It's not coming to the reserves. It is in the exporters account. So the government giving the central bank giving the option. If the exporter bring in the dollars here, he can meet all his financial commitment. Whatever balances he has, he can use it for other purposes. That is where the current regulation giving this obligation. So this rule applicable to every export of goods and services. Even remember, even if you're a service provider, uh, let's say I'm giving some example, right? I'm giving some consultancy services to a firm in Bangladesh. So I'm getting a fee in dollars. So by providing a service when I'm getting $1,000, if I don't have any expenditure, my entire thousand will be converted into rupees. I have option. I can use the 1,000 into investing in Sri Lanka development bond if I want, or if I want to travel, I can use that. Or if I want to do any transaction, I want to buy, purchase anything for my current transaction. I want interest to buy something for my personal use as a permitted. I can still use it. If I don't have any other commitment, then entire thousand will be converted. So I have given when I'm getting my export, whatever foreign exchange earning, I have given opportunity to you utilize for whatever commitment. Apart from that, if you don't utilize, you can't retain that money forever. You need to convert. That is where the regulation, right? It's very clear. So the goods and services, including services, so you need to understand it is applicable to even service intellectual people who intellectual skills. That means you provide some consultancy, tax consultancy, accountancy, or whatever you provide, or professional services, whatever you earn something, then you got to meet after meeting all your financial commitment. Anything balance converted. If you don't have any expenses, your entire money will be converted into rupee, right? That is the regulation says, right? Uh, and there's other regulation. When you are exposed, remember, when you export something, you have to bring the export proceeds into the country 180 days from the shipment date. You have to bring the export proceeds within 6 months. If you don't bring the money, you are into problem. You will be the bank has to give the customer's information to the central bank. So you need to explain to the central bank why there's a delay, why you are unable to bring the export proceeds, because there is a monitoring mechanism. Now exports are goods are going, but whether the corresponding proceeds are coming back is now monitored. So sometimes what happens in those days, there had been a position where a lot of export have been done, but equivalent of dollar is not coming into the country. So it revealed from the custom statistics, so much of goods value is gone out of the country. But when you check the banking channel, the monies have not equivalent of foreign exchanges received. So therefore, they are now monitoring that this has been anyway is the case. This has been old regulation. You have to bring the export proceed into the country. But in some time during the interim level, there had been option given exporters can retain part of the export proceeds in foreign country. So as a result, some of the foreign exchange remain in foreign currency because when they want to put up an office or whatever, they can utilize it. So anyway, exporters are permitted even to open account in other country. The Sri Lankan exporters can open a bank account if they want. Whatever the country they export, they can open a bank account. Also, that's permitted, right? And they can retain also. But now remember, it is not the case. You have to bring the entire export proceeds into the country within 6 months, right? All the export proceeds has to coming into the country within 6 months, right? Uh, Services including professional, yes, the accounts receiving. Yeah, it is not only to domestic banking, even offshore banking client also. They have to bring the offshore banking means here the resident company having offshore banking account also bring the export proceeds into the country within 180 days, and they also need to convert into rupee if they don't use it. But this rule will not applicable to worker remittance. Remember, Worker remittance is a Sri Lankan expatriate person has gone to Middle East working. When he sends the money, that is not converted. Remember, that is not something that you exported. It is person, it is here the resident company here doing sales or doing selling goods or services to other country, bringing foreign exchange into the country, you have to convert. Here the Sri Lankan resident has gone outside Sri Lanka and working and sending his salary. So this rule will not applicable to worker remittance. So you need to understand very clearly, if you're one of your siblings or your father mother working in Middle East, if they are sending money, that money can retain in foreign currency. You need not to convert into rupees at all. It is only the goods and services that you provide while you are here. If you are a worker, you have gone abroad and earning money. So that money is not coming into this equation. So you need not to convert the working remittances. That has to be very clearly understood, right? Okay. So I am trying to explain to you Incoterms, right? What is Incoterms, right? Uh, Let me explain an example. Then you will understand why Incoterms is very important. Incoterms stand for abbreviation is International Commercial Term. Now I'll give you an example. Let's think of example, right? Now I told you a Sri Lankan person is buying a vehicle. A example I quoted you uh, the previous beginning of the session. We took example where one of the Sri Lankan importing a vehicle from Japan, right? Now he has quoted a price. I said 3 million Japanese yen. But remember, in international trade, you can't have any price 3 million Japanese yen. There should be three-letter word should appear, right? So now say for example, if you want to buy a laptop or if you want to buy a TV, you go to a shop, you ask the price. They will say, okay, laptop 175,000. These are specifications. 175,000. That's all they put. They don't put anything extra. Or if you want to buy a LED TV or whatever, they say, okay, it is 80,000 rupees. 80,000 rupees. You go and buy one price. That is because it's traded within the country, domestic trade. But remember, in international trade, how can you quote a price uh, when you do not know who is going to bear the freight charges, who is going to do the insurance, right? So you need to be aware whatever additional responsibility that you are taking as a seller, you will be quoting your price higher price. Now take example, the vehicle seller I told you 3 million Japanese yen he has quoted. Definitely in international term, every price is quoted according to the Incoterms. So you will be quoting your price 3 million Japanese yen CIF Colombo. So what do you mean by CIF Colombo? The 3 million CIF Colombo. The price is quoted Japanese yen 3 million CIF Colombo. The CIF word coming after the price. After the three-letter word, there will be a place or a port will appear. So you can see a three-letter word example. I have given FOB, CIF, DAP. Likewise, there will be certain rules I will explain to you. So you first understand. You should understand. Okay, when somebody is selling a price in overseas, when he quoting a Japanese yen, or for that matter, take a different example altogether. You are buying something from China, right? And the Chinese guy says, my price is dollars. We deal with other rest of the country. Generally deal in dollars. Japanese, we might see Japanese yen. They prefer to deal in Japanese yen. Their currency, designated currency. Generally, other country we deal in generally in dollars. Europe, we may deal in euro currency. Right. Say, let's say you're something buying from China, the currency is dollar. So the Chinese guy says, when you're importing, let's say you're importing some decorative bulbs, right? The Chinese seller might tell you the decorative bulb is $1. One bulb is quoting $1. What is the price? He says $1 CIF Colombo. He says $1 CIF Colombo. Every price is quoting the three-letter word is coming there. So when he total, you ask him how much you got to pay, he will tell, okay, I am sending you 1,000 bulb. The total amount is $10,000 CIF Colombo. So the 10,000 US dollar after the amount, there is word coming CIF, three-letter words coming capital letter. Then there is a place Colombo port. What does it mean is the seller telling you that my 10,000 price is the bulk cost, decorative 1,000 bulk I'm giving you. I am taking care of all the loading charges. I am taking care of all the freight. I am taking care of the insurance, and I will send you the bulk uh, in the Karnataka airport if it is air or seaport, Colombo seaport if it is coming by sea, whatever the airport, right? If the bulk generally coming by air, the bulk might take time coming by sea, it might coming by air. These are not heavy things, these are light things. The bulk can come by air freight also. It can come sea freight also. If you are loading a container full, right? If the quantity is very high, then it can come by sea. Let's say you have one container of bulbs you can importing from LED bulb from China, maybe 10,000 boxes bulb. So it's coming a sea, very heavy. So it can come in the seaport. So he can quote your price 10,000 CIF Colombo. What does it mean? When he quoting a price, he included the cost of the goods plus all the charges included. That is what he said. CIF meaning cost, insurance, freight up to Colombo port. Up to Colombo port, I am bearing the cost. There should be a place coming in. So that is what Incoterm says, right? So in international term, you can't say $5,000. There is no $5,000. There should be $5,000. There should be three-letter word followed by a place or a port should be there. Now, if you really look at Incoterms example, these are only rules, only rules. These are only rules. This is just to mention your price. That's all. This Incoterm doesn't involve any of this. Not deal with any of the matter. It is just to give the pricing. When he quote a price, he says, my price is $10,000 CIF Colombo. For that purpose only Incoterms is used. Just to identify the price, that price will give you obligation where the risk is transfer, who is bearing the cost. That's all it gives. It doesn't give any of the following listed. There is a contract, whether sale is there, whether goods are inferior quality, whether there is a delay. The Incoterms doesn't talk about any of these things. It doesn't deal with any of the obligation. It is simply to quote a price. Incoterms is used. The moment Incoterm is used, you should know the cost involved is how much, what is the obligation, each of them, which point the risk is transferred. There are three things you need to be mindful: risk, cost factor, the obligation, right? So yeah, misunderstanding frequently happen because there is no interpretation is arise very frequently when it comes in Incoterms, right? Now let me, I have given you 3 here: obligation, risk, and cost. So Incoterm only talks about these three: obligation, risk, and cost. Nothing about the transaction, nothing about the payment. There is absolutely no involvement. It is just to simply describe a price which has to be borne by who has to bear, what cost, at which point the risk is transferred. This is only reflecting three things: obligation, risk, and cost. Who has to pay, who does what between seller and buyer? Who does what between seller and the buyer? Who organizes the carriage? There are three things involved. There is a carriage. That means there is a cost for the freight. When you are sending good by sea or air, there is a freight charges. That is a carriage charge. There is a insurance to be taken. Insurance cost. There is a cost to the goods. So these are the three things: cost, insurance, freight. There are three things involved. So when you are quoting a price, you should know Your obligation is up to what? Are you quoting a price only for goods? Are you quoting a price including freight? Or are you quoting a price including insurance? So it is a full price. So your obligation when you're quoting a price, you should know I am quoting a price. I will give you a classic example for you to understand better. There was a case, right? I'm just giving brief you. There is a case where one of the Italian shoemaker, right? Italian shoemaker is selling shoes, right? One of the French buyer wanted to buy 100 pairs of shoe from the Italian shoemaker. So he checked about the prices. The Italian shoemaker issued a invoice, pro forma invoice. He has mentioned my price is euro currency, let's say 10,000 euro, right? And I told in international trade you can't give 10,000 euro. He has mentioned EXW, X work, EXW. I think if you want to learn that, I will give you that. It comes here. Here the first one. All three-letter word, right? You can see all three-letter word. EXW, yeah, X works. EXW stand for X works. Huh? He said X works. He has mentioned Milan is place of delivery. So he has mentioned the price will be quoted like this, right? Remember how to quote the international price. Euro 10,000 EXW dash. He has put his address. Milan address. He is in Milan. Milan is warehouse, whatever address he has put. That is the delivery address. It can be a place of delivery. He has mentioned the place. Milan, whatever plus. Now the French person agreed. He sends the money 10,000 euro. And after 2 weeks time, the goods are not come. There's no news from the shoemaker. So the Frenchman called the shoemaker and said, look here, what is happening? I sent you 10,000 euro as per the X works, Milan. What is happening? He said, look here, what is my Incoterms? What did I tell you? The goods are ready at my warehouse. That's what I said, X work. And I said, Milan, my warehouse address I have given. You have to come and collect it. Now just imagine. See the misunderstanding, total misunderstanding. So in international trade, remember, whether you are an importer or exporter, you should know each and every Incoterms, how it implied to your businesses. If you are an importer, under somebody giving you a price X works, right? Very cheaper price, 10,000 X work. And let's say Sri Lankan, let's say for you to better understand, I'll take the same example. There are importers of shoes here. They're importing from Italy. They're importing from Germany. They're importing from China. So he's getting a price quoted. Different performa invoice he's getting. You can get a performa invoice. Seller will issue a performa invoice. Whether you are taking the goods or not is secondary. They can issue an invoice, right? If you want a quotation, you can go to any company asking a quotation local if you want to buy something. They will say quotation is valid for 14 days. That's all. After that, it's become an null and void if you don't buy. It's a piece of paper. That's all. It doesn't cost much for them to issue a performa invoice. So any supplier will issue a performa invoice, right? When they issue the performa invoice, they have mentioned in the performa invoice what is their pricing, right? And say a Sri Lankan shoe importer getting a performa invoice from various people, and he selected Italian company where he felt it Italian shoes are better. He want to buy 1,000 shoe pairs. He got the price of 20,000 euro, right? X works Milan. Now the price in the performa invoice it says 20,000 euro. X works Milan. The shoe importer should understand what does his price mean. He can't simply think he wrote 20,000 and the goods he is expecting goods to come to Sri Lanka. No. The shoemaker telling the importer, look here, the shoes can be ready, whatever the quantity you requested, it's my warehouse. You have to come and pick it up all the way. So you you need to understand whether it is possible for the Sri Lankan person. It's not at all possible. But we don't. Then you might ask why X work is used. No, remember, Sri Lanka is an island. You need to get down the goods either by sea or air. But there are landlocked countries. By roadway, you can take. That is what you can say international Incoterms. You can see I have taken the rail. There are goods are transported through the railway. The goods are the road truck and the land and the sea and the inland waterway. This is can be a sea, can be inland waterway. German to Italy, German to France. You can send the goods by their waterway, internal waterway, inland waterway. They have a river. They can send it through the river, or they have a railway, or they have a road. They have a land access. These are landlocked countries. The borders are land. So, if a French and Italy, they can take the truck and go and buy it and come. That is the reason. These are international terms. So remember, we are island. So we are different territory. So out of this, what is suits for us only, we have to use the Incoterm. All the Incoterms are globally used. So as we only know, as an island, things are coming into the ports. There is no delivery at place in Sri Lanka. Everything either airport or seaport. There's no other way goods can coming into Sri Lanka other than sea air, right? Because we are an island surrounded by sea water. Anything come as to by sea or by air. So it has to be landed at a port. So any import into Sri Lanka has to be come by port. So you should know it could be air or sea. So there are 11 Incoterms altogether. As per the 2020, they have revised this. Early is 2010 Incoterms. After 10 years, they revise. So the Incoterms, this is again a publication of ICC. International Chamber of Commerce issued this also. Right? Incoterms 2020 is the latest version. There are 11 Incoterms. Out of 11, 7 are used for any mode of transport. You can see rules for any mode of or modes of transport. These 7 can be used for land, can sea, can air, or railway, any 7. The other four only for sea. So Sri Lanka, whatever we are getting down to our country are sea mostly on a container. So we generally use all 3. There's one more to come. Yes, all 4. 7 and 4, 11 altogether, right? So there is FOB we use, CFR we use, CIF use. 3 FOS we don't use it, but there is a Incoterms either. So we as a country which we are getting down goods into these 3 terms, FOB, CFR, CF. We are familiar with these 3 terms. These terms we may not familiar. These earlier 7 terms we may not familiar because this can be used for any mode. So this can be used for landlocked country. It can be used for internal waterway. Even it can be used for our purposes. But as a port, we can't use this as an import because it is applicable to port. Because here you can see place of delivery, place of destination, There's no port involved. But here you can see all the port involved. Look at this, all you can see port of shipment, name port of destination. So you can see all that is port of destination, port coming there. It's airport or seaport coming there. That is where these are applicable to more to our country as island. We are getting most of the heavy goods by sea. So these are the FOB, CIF, CFR are the term we use when it comes to import. When it comes to export, we can export any country, right? We can. There again, we have to export by, there's no other way. We can't send the goods by truck to any country because we are the sea country. We are surrounded by highland, surrounded by sea. So we have to use either sea or air for export or import. Both we have to use the same thing, right? So you should understand what is this Incoterm. Now you have an idea when somebody quoting a price, right? Remember, in international term, the price has to be followed by 3-letter word ending with a place or place of destination or a particular place of port. A particular place should be mentioned. That is where at that place the risk is transferred. Remember, the 3-letter word will comprise of what is the seller taking the responsibility. Now, if I explain to you, right, X works mean here the seller simply take no He just prepare the goods, pack and keep it. That's all he does. He doesn't do anything under X works. So seller take a very small role in doing X works things. Very small role, nothing else, right? Free carrier, he take an additional role, keep it in the carrier, ready for carrier. So he does the export clearance for free carrier. The seller take little more jobs. Carriage freight too, the seller arrange the carriage. He's arrange the main carriage. So you take more response. So you should understand now. If I for you to better understand, if I quote you an example, let's take an exporter selling a pair of shoe at the one pair. I'm taking example of one pair. He quote a price 50 euro, 50 euro for one pair of shoe under X Works Milan, right? If he's selling uh, under FCA, he will quote definitely not 50. He will quote 55. FCA, he will mention a place. There he will deliver the shoe pack at that particular place. And if he says, I am going to pay the carriage, I am going to pay the freight also, he will be quoting 65. He will, because why is increasing the price? He's taking the additional role to bear the expenses, to bear the carriage, bear the freight. If you're going to take the insurance, then CIP, carriage and insurance pay too. You take all three, so price will be 80. So you can see he's increasing the prices when he take more responsibility. Why? His obligation is more. He's bearing more cost. So these are the three things you are learning: obligation, cost, at the point of risk wire transfer. So the Incoterms are simply giving international trade. Incoterms are used when pricing comes in. Every pricing should carry three-letter word, Incoterms word. So we have 11 Incoterms used. Out of 11, 7 Incoterms are used for any mode of transport. It can be sea, it can be inland, it can be air, any mode. You can see 7 Incoterms are used, followed by a place. Right? X works, free carrier, carriage pay to, carriage insurance pay to. Under D terms, remember, delivered at place, unloaded, delivered, duty paid mean. Under D terms, remember, the seller takes the maximum, bearing maximum cost, delivering the goods till to the delivery point of the importer. So he take more responsibility. So when he quoting a price of D terms, remember, it's very high, because he take all the responsibility, deliver the goods to the importer's place, right? And the deliver duty paid is the highest. Even he's pay the import duty also, right? So think, if I give you an example, if a Japanese person sending some goods to Sri Lanka, right, and if you quote a price of deliver duty paid, the importer will need not to do anything. Even he's the paid when the goods are coming into Sri Lanka, he's paid the duty also and giving the container ready at the Colombo port. Can the Japanese person do that? It is generally not applicable to our context, because they don't have a connection to do all that. So in other countries, you can do it. In a landlocked country, the multinational company can do it. Let's say if they have a country, a famous shoe manufacturing company in Italy, they are present in various Europe countries. They have their agent. So when they are quoting a price, they can quote all these prices. Even they can deliver the entire shoe boxes, shoe container to the buyer's warehouse after paying all the duty formalities in their respective country and go and deliver. It is a truck is going, because landlocked country. These are landlocked country. So they can take the truck and go. So that is the reason you should understand. It is Incoterms are used for any mode of transport. There are 7 terms. But C, there are only four terms are used for C, which is we majority used. Because when we export or import, we use the C, the most mode of communication. So we are familiar with the FOB, CFR, CIF. What do you mean by FOB? Free on board. That means if you are an exporter, take example, if a Sri Lankan exporter is there, when he exports something, when he quote a price, he says FOB Colombo. Let's say we are exporting tea, right? If I exporter quote FOB Colombo, 1 kilo tea, FOB Colombo port, he's saying 1 kilo tea is $5. The same C exporter will quote a price of $8 when he quote CFR Colombo.
Same T person quoting $12 if you quote a price of CIF Colombo. CIF, if you T's are going to Tokyo, you quote the price of CIF Tokyo. The T's are going from Colombo to Tokyo. Right? Now see the difference. When he say FOB Colombo, meaning he tell the tea buyer, I can prepare the tea and keeping it at the Colombo port. I can keep the container ready Colombo port. For me, 1 tea kilo is $5. I can keep up to Colombo port 5 kilo, 1 kilo tea is $5. If you want 1 metric ton tea, you pay me at the rate of $5. I will bear all the costs and clear it, import clearance, and keep the container on the board, where next to the port, next to the vessel. You have to arrange everything. If the buyer says, no, I want to do it, why can't you take the freight and put that things? Take the shipping charges also. Then he will quote a price, not $5 anymore. I will quote $8 per kilo. 1 metric ton into $8. What is the additional job he's doing? He says cost and freight. He's paying freight till Tokyo port. So it will be port of destination. So the price will be CFR Tokyo, meaning he's bearing the cost. Therefore, he increased the price to $8. If the buyer says, no, you better take the insurance, send the goods to me to Tokyo port. Now his pricing is CIF Tokyo. What does it mean? Cost, insurance, freight. That means he's including the insurance also. His pricing will be $12. CIF Tokyo. So the seller quoting a price CIF Tokyo mean you should understand is cost, insurance, freight, everything the seller is taking care of. Therefore, seller increase the price. The seller, when he takes more responsibility, the prices increases. If he take a less responsibility, his prices is a lower level. The more the obligation you take, the more the prices you will be quoting, right? That is about the Incoterms, right? Okay, let's quickly look into the document that are used in international trade, right? There are a few documents used, which is important. Commercial invoices, right? Bill of exchange, also called draft. Until the bill of exchange accepted, it's become a draft. Once it is accepted, it's called bill of exchange. So generally people interchangeably using draft and bill of exchange, but in reality, draft become bill of exchange once the drawee accepted it, right? Okay. What is commercial invoice? Any trade, a seller issue an invoice. In international trade, a seller issue a commercial invoice. Once the goods are shipped, he knows how much goods he is putting, how much the payable amount he will mention. So the commercial invoice, a recorded transaction between the seller and buyer, is name, date, name, commercial address, everything seller put it, is an address of the buyer will put it, denomination, the quantity, everything mentioned in the invoice, currency, how much is payable, means of conditions, payment, origin of goods, everything mentioned, means of transport, it is ARC, everything is mentioned, signature, authorized. So I have given an example of, look at the commercial invoice. It is a letterhead of the seller. It will say commercial invoice. His name and address, he's exporter. And he's giving the importer's name and address. Everything is mentioned. Shipment, date, consignee is a consignor. Exporter is a consignor. Consignee is importer name and address. And you give the description of the good. 1 unit, how much, what is, general goods, prices, everything, and all the prices are quoted. All the signatures there is packed, but which vessel is coming, all the details are there in the commercial invoice. So once the seller is exported the commodity, he can prepare a commercial invoice. This is the invoice will indicate the amount payable by the importer to the exporter, because this is the final version once the goods are ready and exported. Then the second thing is bill of lading, the very important document, bill of lading, right? Bill of lading, once the goods are given to the shipping company, the shipping company issue a document called bill of lading. Once the goods are handed over by the exporter, the shipping company will give a document called bill of lading. So the bill of lading will have 3 functions, right? So I have underline each keyword, evidence of receipts. Yes. So once exporter giving the container to the port for them to hand over to the Japanese port, you are given to the shipping company. The container will be taken from Colombo port all the way to Tokyo port. So the shipping company undertaken your container. Once you give the container, they will give the bill of lading. That is the proof that they have taken the container. Second, bill of lading, second function is they have undertaken Colombo port to Tokyo port to deliver. So they take from Colombo port the container till Tokyo port, they will deliver. It is a contract of carriage. The second role is contract of carriage. First role is evidence of receipt of goods. Second role is contract of carriage. Right. When the goods are shipped, remember, the documents are sent by the exporter's bank to the importer's bank. Importer's bank will release the document to importer. The importer will go to the customs and clear the goods. When he wants to clear the goods, he has to give the bill of lading to show the goods are shipped to in his favor. He the consignee. The bill of lading will carry the importer's name. So the bill of lading is the title to the goods. So the bill of lading doing three functions. I'll repeat that. First is evidence of receipt of goods. The shipping company has taken the custody of the goods from the exporter. For that, they issue the bill of lading. And the bill of lading will also, it's a kind of a contract of carriage there where the container will be taken from Colombo port, will be delivered to the Tokyo port. They are undertaken the contract of carriage. So that's why you pay the freight charges for the shipping company, right? And when the shipping company, after taking the container, when they give the bill of lading will be sent back to through the banking channel to the importer through the bank. When the importer gets the bill of lading, he has to submit the same bill of lading to claim the title to the goods because he is in the importing country now. He has to submit the customs to claim that the container numbers also will be in the bill of lading. So customs will identify the container number looking at the bill of lading and then find the name, who is shipper, who is the buyer, his name is there, then deliver the container. Right? So the bill of lading become a title to the goods, right? In shipper, remember, in shipper bill of lading, consignor, shipper. The importer, the buyer will be consignee. So if you look at the bill of lading, I have given you example, you can see consignee, consignor, both names are, this is sample I have taken. The number one is consignor, the shipper. Number two is consignee, the buyer. Notification party, that is number three. Sometimes you will have to inform. So generally, notification party same as consignee, right? Then the other details, bill of lading number there, then which port of loading, port of discharge, everything is there, and the description of goods is there, container numbers there, and the shipping company signs. This is a bill of lading issued by Evergreen Line Shipping Company. So they own a lot of vessels. You can see sometime when you go the containers on the road, you can see Evergreen is printed. These are Evergreen Line containers. This is one of the biggest shipping company in the world, right? So they issue. This is the bill of lading. Now you know what is the three function of the bill of lading, right? Okay. Right. Certificate of origin. Why this is used? I think in the afternoon session I told you we have preferential tariff. I was telling you that we have a bilateral agreement with Indo-Sri Lanka agreement. When the goods are coming from India to Sri Lanka or from Sri Lanka to India, there is a duty concession given because both countries enter into bilateral agreement. As per the agreement, let's say if the goods are coming from Sri Lanka to Colombo to India, the Indian person has to get the concession. The Indian person has to ask the exporter, send me the certificate of origin. Then only I can claim the duty. I can ask my customs people not to claim the duty because I have to show the goods are coming from Sri Lanka. Then if you are exporter, remember, if you are exporter from Sri Lanka to India, the Indian importer might require the certificate of origin. Or if you are a importer buying a goods from India, where there is a trade agreement between India and Sri Lanka, and if you are importing some material, some food item from India, there is a duty. You will ask the Indian supplier, send me the certificate of origin. So the certificate of origin issued by the exporter's country Chamber of Commerce. The exporter's country Chamber of Commerce. What do they assure? The goods are manufactured in that country. The goods are origin of that country. The purpose of these documents to obtain the preferential taxes, duties, concessionary tariff. So if you really know this document only allow you to make all these bilateral concession given by different countries. For you to claim this concession, you need to submit this CO. You call it CO, certificate of origin. Certificate origin is required. So certificate origin is issued by generally exporting country. The exporting country chamber of commerce or national chamber of commerce will different name, different country will use. They will issue this certificate of origin just to ensure the goods are manufactured in the exporter's country. That's all. So that when the goods are going from exporter country to the importer country buyer, importer get the duty concession. Why? If the goods are from the respective export country, there is a concession. So the Sri Lankan customs, when you clear the goods that are come from India, you will get the duty waived off. You need not to pay duty because there is an agreement. Whatever goods coming from India, the duty should not be charged. So there is a bilateral agreement between. For you to get the benefit, you need to get the document. These are origin of Indian goods. Or if we are exporting to India, we have to say these are Sri Lankan manufactured goods. So Indian buyer to get the benefit. Either way, both parties to get the benefit, you have to submit the certificate of origin. So the appearance of certificate of origin, generally you can see issued by Chamber of Commerce. This is issued by Thailand Chamber of Commerce. It says it's a confirm this is a origin of Thailand goods. See, made in Thailand. Origin is made in Thailand. So if somebody buying a goods from Thailand, they have to issue the Chamber of Commerce Thailand so that they get the benefit. So these are used when there are bilateral agreement or when you are into the regional SAC and other SAFTA, you get the benefit. If you submit the certificate of origin, you get the preferential. When you are importing from other country, you will be charged. But when you have a preferential country, if you have a bilateral agreement country, the Chamber of Commerce a certificate of origin is a must document in order to get the benefit, right? You understand that, right? Yeah, inspection certificate. Why inspection certificate is important? Because when you are getting down, especially machinery, vehicles, huge transport document, the inspection certificate is very important. Why? Because when you are getting down like a capital goods of expensive nature, right? Say you are getting down a brand new vehicle or a reconditioned vehicle, right? Then what happened? You want to have an independent inspector to give a certificate to inspect and see whether all these specified promises by the sellers are met. So that certificate of origin, inspection certificates are generally issued by third-party institution, right? They will verify. So suppose say we are taking a reconditioned vehicle from Japan. The Japan seller says this is the auto version, this is 2019 model, all this specification he has mentioned in the performa invoice. But you never know. But you are insisting through your bank, I want a certificate of inspection issued by a Japanese authority, third party or independent authority to check the vehicle, issue a certificate. So that when they issue the certificate, you can compare the performa invoice and the inspection certificate whether all the conditions are met. The third party also confirming, so that you are aware of, okay, third party also confirming what the seller actually promised are all are there. So that is for you to make sure the inspection certificate is done. And also sometimes when you get the inspection certificate, is sometimes regulatory requirement also requires an inspection certificate, especially for clearance purposes, whether it's a reconditioned vehicle or brand new vehicle. Certificate inspection will say date of manufacturing, date of check, everything is. So it is usually done prior to shipment. You call pre-shipment inspection. Before shipment, the independent body will go and check it. There are companies that specialize inspectors, certain for various type of. So I have given some example. Swiss SGS, French Bureau Veritas Group, and Intertech Group. These are international inspectors. They give a certificate. When you are getting down machineries from Europe and all, you can get down the work of Swiss SGS. Or if you are getting down from France, French Bureau Veritas, and they will check and issue a certificate. So when the certificate come for clearance purpose, also you need to prove this certificate is issued by French, and this is a used machine or brand new machine. These are these features, so that they will charge duty accordingly. So inspection certificate can be used for dual purpose. One is for local regulation, other one for your self satisfaction, and to make sure financially whatever commitment you are making, whether that features are added to the goods. Otherwise, that is generally given by third party. So sample of here you can see inspection certificate. Here gear trolley is imported. Somebody, a chief inspector, David tested and he says he checked it and see, and the quality system as per the accordance for the requirement, the goods are in perfect condition. So they issue a certificate. This is just a sample I am given you. This is how the document will looks like when you get an inspection certificate. Some inspector or somebody has to check and issue a certificate, right? This is just a sample of inspection certificate. Then come packing list. What is packing list? Packing list are used when you are buying a commodity in number of cartons. Say if you are importing a bulbs, it's running into so many boxes. 5 watts, 10 watts, uh, then warm white, bright light, bright white, warm white, different type of lights, color lights, decorative bulbs. So you have 1,000 cartoons, right? So when you're getting a pack, asking the supplier or the seller, give me a packing list when you're sending the goods to me. That is one of the condition when you are getting down some commodity by LC. You put a precondition. I want a packing list because you are getting 1,000 cartoons, 1,000 boxes. So when you're unloading the goods, and when you unload it and now try to putting into your warehouse, you want to make sure the cartons are numbered. The packing list means the seller knows each carton he will number. So let's say you are getting down 50 boxes of same variety, a variety, say 50 boxes. So you can number 1 to 50. The boxes are marked up to 1,000. 1 to 50 are same kind. So you can, when you are keep the goods in a proper place, you can keep 1 to 50 in one place. Then you know up to 1 to 50 boxes are all same. From 51 to 150, the other variety. So you keep the 51 to 150 in a different place. So that the packing list will assist you to arrange your goods in such a way, in a methodical manner, different types of goods are arranged. Otherwise, in warehouse, if everything comes in a bulk, just imagine for you to pick up the particular box from different kind of bulbs out of 1,000 boxes, how difficult it would be. Not at all possible. So in order to overcome that, only the packing list are used. It's generally for small commodities coming into number of boxes, the packing list are used for you to arrange the goods in such a methodical manner, right? This here the company name is mentioned. I say goods are sent to there. They will mark each total. They will mark each item. They will mark the number of boxes. So I'm just taken an example of it. This is how it looks like. They will mark each boxes. Each boxes will have so much of weight. Everything is marked. They will say 1 to 5, 5 watts, 51 to 150, 10 watts bulbs, different type of bulbs. All are there listed there. That is a packing list. Yeah, bill of exchange. We were talking about bill of exchange or draft or whatever. As I told you, it is seller prepares it, addressed to the buyer, written order, and he will make the payment at a future date, right? Drawn on the letterhead of the exporter, pre-printed document. This spelling mistake, just correct it, is a document, pre-printed document, and sign under the sense of the buyer. So I give an example here. You can see a bill of exchange generally issued in duplicate, right? So I give an example. Yeah, this is how the bill of exchange. So here the auto company prepares it, and it is addressed to. I just there's a mark on your left hand corner. You can see to. That is the address to the importer, prepared by the auto company. It is the seller, addressed to the buyer or the exporter, importer, and where at the site of this first bill of exchange, that he has to pay. The importer has to pay to the commercial bank how much dollars? That's mentioned. US dollar 30,804 cents 70 on 30,804. The amount is there on the top. So here he signed it on the cross of on the across of the bill of exchange that the import has to sign. Then he is accepting that he will pay accordingly. This is the bill of. So you can see it's prepared by signed by the person who prepares it, only signs. He is the seller. It is addressed to the importer, and he has to accept it. In some country, you have to sign it in the stamps. In some country, bill of exchange are expensive. You have to put a stamp. That is what I told you. In some country, they don't use the bill of exchange. That is what in LC you are deferred payment, no bill of exchange, except when there is a bill of exchange. Right? A bill of exchange is subject to stamp duty. Right? So Right. Then the final topic is shipping guarantee. So what is shipping guarantee? You will study shipping guarantee in details also when it comes to facility. For the moment, is I thought is more relevant to you. Here also shipping guarantee comes in. Shipping guarantee. Take example. If you are buying goods from India, right? Within matter of 24 to 48 hours, the ship will be here. Generally, within 24 hours, the vessel will be here. But for you to get the document, this might take 1 week, right? Then what happened in Sri Lanka, when the goods are arrived Colombo port, they will giving you 1 week to clear the goods. If you don't clear 1 week, the goods will be separated from the board, because there is a board there. Board mean in sea, when the ship comes and gives a berth, and the containers are unloaded in the board. There's a huge place where the containers are kept in the board, and that container will have 1 week time for the respective importer to clear it. Because what happened, there could be other vessel come. There could be so many vessels coming. So they can't keep all the containers on the board itself, because they need to arrange it. The way the ships are scheduled to come, you need to arrange these containers, right? So 1 week you have to arrange it. The new container coming, you have to take all those and keep it in a proper, keep it in another place. For that, there is an additional cost. They have to use the crane to lift the containers. The additional cost only called demurrage. You can see, to avoid demurrage. So the some people may pronounce as a demurrage. The right pronunciation is demurrage. Demurrage is charges, additional charges claimed by the ports authority, just to keep the goods in a different place. You have to pay a rental. So in order to avoid that, now say the vessel has come, your documents have not come, right? So you have to go to the shipping company and say, I don't have a bill of lading. My bank has not received the documents, but I want to clear this. The shipping company will give an indemnity, asking the importer to sign and get it countersigned by the bank. So the letter of indemnity or letter of guarantee, you may call it as a letter of indemnity or letter of guarantee, will be issued in the format of shipping company will give it, and the importer has to take that, and he will sign and asking the bank to countersign, because the shipping company will only give when the shipping guarantee is given by the bank. Bank counter signature is important. Bank will also countersign and say they will pay in the event of bill of lading not coming. They will take the responsibility. But here you can see shipping guarantees are issued in a situation where goods have arrived, but the relevant documents have not reached the bank. Why the goods need to be? Why there is a hurry to clear? Because there is a cut-off date within which the goods need to be cleared. Otherwise, the import has to pay additional charges in the form of demurrage to the ports authority. So that's going to kill his profit. That's going to take part of his profit out. So therefore, he doesn't want that to happen. So he will pay shipping. There's additional bank charges will come in. He doesn't mind pay small charges, and to evade the penalty, demurrage, right? So this is how the letter of guarantee looks like. Is the shipment signature of the consignee. The shipping company will sign. The importer will sign, and the bank will countersign the document and giving it to the shipping company, right? So remember that this shipping guarantee is an interim for a temporary thing. Once original documents come, what will happen? Bank will ask the importer, here the original bill of lading. You bring the shipping guarantee from the shipping company, cancel. Then the importer take the bill of lading, original bill of lading, giving it to the shipping company. Now shipping company take the original bill of lading and cancel the shipping guarantee and giving it to the importer. Importer will come and handing over to the bank. Then the shipping guarantee liability will be taken off. So that is the interim arrangement until the original bill of lading come. Interimly to arrange it, right? Okay, so we come to the final session, Q&A session. So going back to quickly to see what has happened. I'm sorry. Let's see let's take our obligation to make sure what we learned today. Yeah, what is international trade? You understood? Yes. What is our obligation? Learning obligation. You know what is international trade and how it operates? Yes. Sri Lanka trade policies, tariff, 4-band structure there. Yes, authorized dealer, you need to be exercised careful. Payment method, yes, you know LCs and DPDA. Yes, you know UCP, Uniform Custom Practice, you know Uniform Reimbursement, Uniform Rules of Collection, you know. Incoterms, you know what is the 2020 Incoterms? Yeah, documents used in trust. So you learned everything, right? So it's a question time, right? It's okay. So shall we quickly go through the questions and see whether you can answer any of this question quickly? Yes. A bill of lading is one most important document in international trade, and it functions as an evidence of proof of handing over goods to the shipping company, a contract of carriage, a title of the goods, all above. What is the answer? What is the answer? Anybody? Any guess? What is the answer?
All above?
All above. Yes, very good. All above is the answer because it meet all three obligation: evidence, contract of carriage. Yeah, answer is all above. Correct. Question 2. A certificate of origin issued in international trade for what? Claiming the title to the goods, obtaining the import duty concession or waiver, forwarding an insurance claim for the losses, making payment for the port charges. What is that certificate of origin used for? What is the answer? Certificate of origin. We just studied obtaining import duty and
Obtaining the import duty.
yes, yes, correct, correct, correct. Yes, this is the answer. Yes. Okay, question 3. The usage of shipping guarantees required in the following The usage of shipping guarantees required in the following circumstances: to pay custom duty, to pay shipping charges, to clear the goods in the absence of original bill of lading, to guarantee the quality of the goods. Why shipping guarantees are used? What is the answer? To pay custom duty, or to pay the shipping charges, or to clear the goods in the absence of original bill of lading, or to guarantee the quality of, which is the answer?
To clear the goods
No
in the
answer, right?
absence of the original.
Yeah, to clear the goods in the absence of the original bill of lading. Yes. Right. Question number 4. Documentary collection mean collection of the following. Documentary collection mean collection of the following. Financial documents not accompanied by the commercial documents. Commercial documents not accompanied by the financial document. Commercial documents accompanied by the financial document. Financial documents accompanied by the commercial document. Now, don't get confused. Simple thing here. Documentary collection means we learn two things: DP and DA, right? Documentary collection. So, documentary collection means definitely it has to be commercial. Documentary collection means definitely commercial document should be there. There's no second word. In some time, DA, there is a financial bill of exchange involved. There is a financial documents also involved in DA. So they are asking documentary collection. So it should be both. It should be both way. It should be financial document, on financial document accompanied by commercial, or it could be only commercial document not accompanied by the financial document. Okay. So let me see. Financial documents not accompanied by, first is wrong, because when you say documentary collection, the commercial documents is a must. The first one says not accompanied by the, so it is out. Second one, commercial documents not accompanied. No, documentary collection means they are not very specific whether DP or DA. Both are there. Therefore, you can't say commercial documents not accompanied by the financial document. You can't tell that. That is because document. If it is document, commercial document not accompanied by financial document, for DP, yes. But here D also there. Therefore, you second also out. Look at the third one. Commercial documents accompanied by the financial document. Commercial documents accompanied by the financial document. Right? Financial documents accompanied by the commercial documents. So, similarly, what is the correct answer? Commercial documents accompanied by financial documents is correct. Financial documents accompanied by the commercial documents also equal. That's also correct. Right? So since it's a documentary collection, so both is correct. Question number 5. Which rule are applicable when handling import bill for collection? Which rules are applicable when handling import bills for collection? UCP 600, URR 725, URC 522, URDG. URDG you never learned, Uniform Rules for Demand Guarantee. So you know URDG will not come. We are not learned. What is the correct answer out of 3?
Third one.
Yeah, URC 522. Yeah, that is the answer. UCP and URR for LCs, not for documentary collection. Right. Case study. Bank A being a remitting bank in China. Listen carefully. Listen. Bank A being a remitting bank in China. Send a set of export documents pertaining to export of electrical goods on behalf of their export customer, Jung and Company, on collection basis to Bank B, being a collecting bank in Sri Lanka. So now you can see, you can name even. Now you know how to name. Bank A. What is the name? Bank A. When somebody exporting a country under collection, export documents are sent on collection. What is the Bank A name? Yeah, the name is the remitting bank. The remitting bank, you know the remitting bank, right? Set of shipping document pertaining to export of electrical goods on behalf of their export customer. Export customer, Jung and Company. Export customer, what is the name for exporter?
Drover.
No, you don't call it as a drover. What is the name? We learned a different name. Principal, yes. Not drover. Principal, yes. Principal. Use the word principal. Drover, don't use it. Principal. Drovey import, you can use it, but the drover is the right name. Drover is the principal. On collection basis to Bank B. Bank B is a collecting bank. Favoring the importer Pereira and Brothers. Yeah, Drovey is the Pereira and Brothers. Yes. How would the documents be handled by the collecting bank in the following circumstances? How would the documents be handled by the collecting bank in the following circumstances? Right? Now carefully listen. Collection contains a bill of exchange. Collection contains a bill of exchange. There is a document bill of exchange. Payable at a future date. Yes, always bill of exchange payable at a future date. And the collection instruction indicates that commercial documents are to be released against payment. Now, bill of exchange is there, but collection instruction says commercial documents to be released against payment. Now, how would the bank handle the documents? Will they release the documents on without payment, since the bill of exchange is there, or they will insist the payment? Collection contain a bill of exchange payable at a future date, and the collection instruction says indicate the commercial documents are to be released against payment. So collection instruction clearly says document need to be released against payment, but there is a bill of exchange also there. So what is the rule you have to take? Yes, answer is, how would you release the documents? Any guess? What is the answer? How would the bank release the document? Will they insist the payment?
Against the payment, they will release.
Yes, against the payment they will release. They won't release the release without the payment. Though the bill of exchange is there, it doesn't mean to release the document again, except because the collection instruction contradicting bill of exchange is there, but it says commercial documents to be released against payment. So the bank will release the documents against payment. The answer is the collecting bank will release the documents, or you can say Bank B. The proper answer would be Bank B will be releasing the documents only against payment, though the bill of exchange is there. Right. That is the answer for collection 1. 2. Collection instruction indicate that the commercial documents are to be released. Collection instruction indicate that the commercial documents are to be released against acceptance of bill of exchange, payable at a future date. And collection does not contain a bill of exchange. Now it's a peculiar situation. The collection instruction says document to be released against acceptance, but there is no bill of exchange. What would be the answer? What is the course of action bank would take? What would be the course of? Will the collecting bank has to communicate to the remitting bank? Yes, they need to communicate, because it's a contradicting situation. Because you can see collecting instruction says commercial document are released against acceptance. Then there should be a bill of exchange. There is no bill of exchange. So the correct answer is You can write down if you want the correct answer, right? This kind of a question you can expect in the exam, right? This kind of a question only you can expect in the exam, right? Collection instruction, you can say your answer should be uh, bank B being a collecting bank, bank B being a collecting bank, uh, should make communication with the remitting bank, should make communication with the remitting bank, should make communication with the remitting bank to inform to inform to inform the collection did not include the bill of exchange. The collection did not include the bill of exchange. To inform the remitting bank, the collection did not include the bill of exchange. Inform the remitting bank that the collection did not include the bill of exchange. Did not include the bill of exchange. Hence, hence, hence the remitting bank, hence the remitting bank should communicate to the hence remitting bank should communicate to the principal. Hence remitting bank should communicate to the principal hence remitting bank should communicate to the principal and obtain his instruction and obtain his instruction and obtain his instruction obtain his instruction and forward same to the collecting bank. Forward same to the collecting bank. Forward same to the collecting bank. Right? What happened most of the time, to save the time, right? To save the time, he has to prepare it, it has to be courier it again. So generally, what happened when the remitting bank communicate to the principal, you are not attached the bill of exchange. This kind of things will generally not happen when the bank will, when you say documents again to be released again acceptance, the bank remitting bank will generally follow it up and ask the bank, ask the remitter, there is no bill of exchange. You have to attach the bill of. It can happen, it cannot happen. Sometimes it could happen, overlooked by the remitting bank also. That is not the obligation. That is they are not obliged to do that, but they generally do it to safeguard the customer, right? But in this case, it has happened already. Now they are communicating the principal. Here, look here, you are not attached the principal. What are we supposed to do? You are not attached the bill of exchange. What are we supposed to do? He will say, ask the bank to prepare their own version and get it signed, or let the drawee to prepare their own version. So here the creation of documents will be given to the option of the collecting bank or the drawee, right? So you can just make another sentence and say, uh, if the bill of exchange, if the bill of exchange if the bill of exchange if the bill of exchange need to be prepared by the drawee, that is importer, the bill of exchange need to be prepared by the drawee, within bracket you can say importer or the collecting bank or the collecting bank. In this kind, in this type of scenario or in this type of situation, it's very important. In this type of situation, the form and the wording, the form and the wording of such document, the form and the wording of such document, the form and the wording of such documents. The form and the wording of such documents. Have not been provided by the remitting bank. 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 Therefore, collecting bank shall not take any responsibility. Collecting bank shall not take any responsibility. Therefore, collecting bank shall not take any responsibility or liable. Shall not take any responsibility or liable for the format or form and the wording of such documents. The format or the form and the wording of such documents, right? So remember, in the situation like this, the remitting bank has to come back and give the wordings. If the remitting bank come back and say, as per the drawer, or the remitting bank says, you use your own format. If the remitting bank doesn't giving any format, so it's the format used by the collecting bank or the rawee. It's up to them. So nobody can find out the format and the wordings. They generally take the normal wordings. So nobody can challenge and put them into responsibility just because of wording there's issue. Collective bank will evade the responsibility because they say you have not given the wordings. Therefore, we have used our own wordings and taken this. So therefore, any additional things comes responsibility that will not collective bank is not responsible, right? So I think that ends the session 2. Okay, so we will continue to have our session probably next Saturday also. We will have 3-4 sessions continuously. Probably you will have 1 week break and to go over the remaining session. So I will meet you in the 3rd session on next Saturday, same time, right? See you then on the next Saturday.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.